Everything starts on a peaceful day in the city of Aldia. Suddenly, an excited voice says that she finally found the guy she was looking for. A girl runs up and pulls the MC by the arm, rushing him so they can get going. She insists that he hurries up and comes with her without complaining. Completely exhausted, the boy just sighs, having no way to escape that situation. Later, on another day, he decides to rest peacefully by sitting in a local tavern. But the peace ends when a nun suddenly appears, saying that she finally found him. She grabs his arm and begs the guy to accompany her to her estate. Out of options again, he lets out another tired sigh in the face of so much insistence. On yet another random day, the little blonde girl named Remy shows up, pulling him to play. However, this time he refuses and lets her know he is very busy, which ends up surprising the girl. Not taking no for an answer, Remy drags the MC by force, complaining that she finally has some free time. A woman, looking a lot like Remy, touches his shoulder and promises it will only be for a little while. Already drained of energy, he mentally asks himself why this always happens to him. To understand how he ended up in this bizarre situation, we need to go back in time a little. In the past, in the middle of a dark forest, a brutish man calls out to the rookie of the group. The MC, named Kai, answers the leader's call right away. The boss of the group announces they are going to sleep and orders Kai to keep watch for the next few hours. He also orders him to rough up the hostages if they make any noise. Walking away, the man mocks them, saying the prisoners probably do not even have the strength to scream anymore. Alone in the cold night, Kai stays quiet, processing his new reality. Completely confused, he tries to figure out how he ended up in this strange place. His last memory was causing a serious traffic accident, which makes him wonder if he passed away right there. Right after the accident, he simply woke up in the camp and does not understand anything that is going on. Observing the moon and the landscape, the guy feels like he knows that environment from somewhere. Then he realizes he is inside the world of the game he was playing the other day. However, looking at the tents, he notices a much bigger and immediate problem. Kai realizes he is clearly helping the villains of the story and starts panicking. Upon noticing some strange movement, the MC turns his face toward one of the wagons. He peeks inside and is shocked to see that it is actually a large iron cage. Seeing the group locked inside, he concludes they are the hostages the bandits mentioned. Remembering the game's story, he knows the useless villains were always taken out, which puts him in danger. Terrified by the idea of meeting his end, he decides the best option is to run away from there as fast as possible. Determined to escape, Kai starts looking for money and a map among the camp's belongings. Analyzing the map, he feels confident he will be able to escape without a hitch since he already knows that world. With the items in hand, he turns back to the cage before running away for good. Kai opens the iron door and ends up scaring the girls, who cower inside. Trying not to look like a threat, he approaches slowly and suggests they escape together. The three captive girls stare at him, extremely surprised by the sudden proposal. The red-haired prisoner questions the idea of escaping, still very suspicious of the guy. She loses her patience and tells him she knows very well he is trying to trick them. The nun joins the conversation and demands a good reason to trust him after everything they went through. Without much of a way to defend himself from those accusations, the MC stays silent. The girl mocks his silence, thinking she ruined the supposed villain's plan. Then Kai makes up a lie, saying he took so long because he needed to go undercover among the enemies. The girls are amazed by the revelation, while he knows he had to lie to earn their trust. He hurries the group up, warning them that if the bandits find out, it will be curtains for them. Sad, the girl confesses she is in no condition to run because she hurt her leg really badly. The nun also reveals her problem to the group, showing she completely lost her sight. Besides that, they explain that little Remy is completely exhausted and sick. Without hope, they conclude they would end up passing out and not making it on the road if they try to escape. Even so, they thank Kai, relieved just to know he is not a real enemy. The MC listens to them bent in complete silence while he processes the gravity of the situation. Just then, a weak and trembling hand starts to rise. Little Remy gathered her last bit of strength to beg for Kai's help. The little girl's desperate plea hits the MC right in the feels. He clenches his fists tightly and refuses the idea of leaving them behind. Determined, he states that running is still better than staying and offers to carry whoever cannot walk. The prisoners are in shock seeing everything he is willing to do for them. Trying to calm the group down, he says he has a map and guarantees everything will be fine because he knows the region well. In a rush, Kai reaches out his hands and tells the other two to hold on to him as well. Making an unbelievable effort, he lifts the three girls all at once and runs into the forest. During the escape, the guy notices his new body is very muscular and different from his past life. Right after, he shakes his head to chase away the random thoughts and focus on survival. Looking back, he feels a huge relief upon realizing the bandits are not following them. Calmer in the middle of the woods, the MC starts pulling the map's information from his memory. He remembers seeing the city he named himself while playing, confirming his suspicions. With this valuable information, he quickly maps out an action plan in his mind. Using his game knowledge, he guides the group with absolute certainty of the path they should take. After a lot of effort, they finally arrive safely at a treehouse. Confused and unable to see the environment, the nun asks where they ended up after all. Kai settles the group on the floor and explains that this place is basically a safe hideout. Next, he stops in front of a tombstone that was nearby, and he asks the girls to wait there a bit while he focuses his attention on the tombstone. Accessing his game memories, Kai uses a keyword to activate the magic that was carved into it. With the magic activated, an illuminated door appears right on the trunk of the massive tree. He enters the hideout surprised to actually be there, noting that the place is quite dusty, but it will do for now. The MC then carries Remy, who was very sick, safely inside the treehouse. Seeing all that, the redhead questions if he is really just an ordinary agent after everything, and the nun is intrigued by the fact that he built a hideout under those conditions. Playing it cool, Kai replies he is just as surprised as they are. Quickly changing the subject, the two of them look very worriedly at Remy, fearing for the little girl's fragile health. Right then, the guy remembers there should be some items stored in the hideout stash. Anxious, the girl asks if he has anything they can give the little girl to eat. He opens an old wooden chest and mentions that, regarding food, the situation is a bit different. Observing several vials, Kai is relieved to confirm that the system kept the game items untouched right there. Grabbing a vial, he announces he found medicine, but the girl gets annoyed, warning that something common will not save someone so weak. However, she's completely shocked to see the purple liquid glowing in the guy's hand. Chill about it, Kai explains it is no regular medicine, so he is sure it is going to work. Totally amazed, she recognizes the unmistakable color of the mysterious potion. Kai looks at the vial, agreeing it looks like something rare, remembering that in the game he only kept the best items possible. In the game he used to play, the potion instantly cured any injury, hunger, or illness, making it something extremely hard to craft. Staring at the potion, the girls cannot believe he has something so valuable. Standing up, he mentally calculates that with 117 of those stored away, money will no longer be an issue for them. The redhead shrinks back scared and asks again who he really is to have such an absurd item. Tired of the suspicion, the MC just lets out a sigh. He crouches down and hands the vial to her, warning that it is better not to ask any more questions for their own good. Right after, he instructs that the two of them should also use the potion to heal themselves. The guy justifies his attitude by saying he does not want the hassle of carrying 3 people on his back down the road. Very embarrassed, the blind nun shyly asks if there is one of that legendary elixir for her too. Without hesitating, Kai places another healing vial right into the nun's trembling hands. Holding the magic glass, she is in awe, unable to believe what is happening. Meanwhile, Kai approaches Remy lying on the floor and praises the little girl's resilience. And then he gives her the medicine. Instantly, a bright and intense light envelops Remy's body, magically healing all her wounds. Impressed by the strong glow, the MC closely observes the magic effect kicking in instantly. Little Remy opens her eyes fully recovered and thanks the guy in a soft voice. He calmly tells her to just rest, since physical medicine does not cure the mental exhaustion they went through. The room goes quiet as the magic effect finishes fading into the air. Satisfied with the result, Kai tosses the empty glass vial into the corner of the room. On the other side, the redhead and the nun stand up with their bodies perfect and clean, free from any injuries. Observing the two of them recovered, he already starts planning what kind of reward he can charge after taking them home safely. His train of thought is interrupted by the girls crying loudly, celebrating being able to see and walk on their own again. With a calm demeanor, he admits he does not know how long they suffered at the hands of the bandits. Respecting the prisoner's emotional moment, he decides to give them some space to take it all in. The next day, the morning light brightens the treehouse, while Kai is surprised to find out they were kidnapped in the city of Aldia. Sitting peacefully, he mentions that this distance is the equivalent of crossing more than 2 cities. He leans against the wall, figuring that the trip back is going to take quite a while. Annoyed by the complaining, the girl tells him to blame his former bandit buddies, since it is entirely their fault. The nun explains with the map in her hands that if they knew how to use teleportation magic, they would have escaped a long time ago. Awkwardly, the guy agrees she makes a great point about their lack of magic. Checking the stats of his current body, Kai realizes he has the average level of a regular treasure hunter with no special skills. The nun adds that, according to legends, only a single person in the past managed to use teleportation magic. Hiding his nervousness, he agrees quickly and decides to steer the conversation towards something more important. Focusing on the survivors, the MC wants to know how everyone is feeling after the magical healing. The nun smiles gratefully, confessing she is still trying to get used to seeing again. As for the girl, she looks away and shyly gives thanks for her leg being healed. Gaining confidence, she demands that he stop calling her whatever he wants and proudly reveals her noble name is Karen. Following her companion's lead, the nun formally introduces herself as Nina. They also confirm that the little girl who is still sleeping soundly is named Remy. Processing all this info, Kai goes into a mental panic because he thinks these names are impossible to memorize. Determined, he warns that the big challenge now will be taking the entire trio back to their hometown safely. However, the guy is extremely direct in stating he cannot give any guarantees of protection against the enemies. Karen is startled by the cold answer and indignantly asks why he would say something like that. With a serious look, he explains that no matter how strong someone is, absolute guarantees do not exist in a risky situation. The MC reflects that, unlike a game, here their lives are truly on the line, and one mistake could be fatal for everyone. Karen listens tensely as he reminds them they have no idea about the number of enemies or their true strength. Understanding the gravity of the situation, Nina agrees that the best survival strategy is avoiding direct confrontations at all costs. The two of them hold hands, scared by the harsh reality that meeting your maker here is permanent. With that, Kai guarantees he will do the impossible to avoid getting into any battles during the journey back. Calmer, Karen curiously asks if the guy has already thought of a practical plan to escape the forest. He gives an awkward smile, confessing he still does not have a perfectly defined strategy. The two girls stare at the MC with a deadpan expression, judging his lack of preparation. Sweating bullets under their stares, he quickly deduces the kidnappers must be watching the city of Wafer. Pointing at the map, he explains that, since it is the closest city and his supposed origin, the bandits will set up an ambush there. Because of that, the plan will be to avoid the north and head straight down through the forest towards the south until they find a safe settlement. Karen interrupts worryingly, reminding him they have zero money to pay for transport or supplies on the road. Cool as a cucumber, Kai shows the bag of coins he swiped from the enemy camp and says he will use it all to buy them new clothes. Confused by so much generosity, Nina quietly asks the real reason he is trying so hard to save them. The nun argues that besides using super valuable elixirs, he supposedly broke his cover as an agent just to protect the group. Still processing the situation, Kai hesitantly agrees with the conclusion the nun just jumped to about his actions at the camp. Trying to keep up the charade, he claims he makes a living as a spy, but soon realizes he has zero talent for telling lies. Keeping his cover, the guy tells them to thank their own parents, claiming he would not do any of that without receiving orders from the top. In the middle of the conversation, little Remy moves around while lying on the wooden floor of the treehouse. Noticing the sound of the little girl moving, the MC asks her to let them know if she has woken up from her nap. The girl answers in a low voice that she is already awake, making the guy sigh at how long it took her to speak up. Changing focus, Kai stretches and tells the girls they should only go wash up in the river when it gets dark to avoid being seen. However, Nina chimes in, shyly revealing she can use purification magic. With this convenience on hand, the MC tells the two of them to use the magic, making the excuse that he will go to the river because he does not want to rely on a kid's power. The companions stare at their savior, surprised by his lack of magic, commenting that this skill would come in super handy for a secret agent's line of work. Nervous about the spot-on observation, he makes up the excuse that using overly convenient spells ends up drawing unwanted attention from people. Without asking any more questions, the young nun directs her purifying magic to completely clean Karen and Remy's bodies. Far from there, the guy enjoys the refreshing river waters to wash the dirt off his own body during the sunny afternoon. Inside the safety of the hideout, the trio waits patiently until nightfall. Already fully dressed in his new dark armor, he puts on his helmet and calls the survivors so they can finally start the trip. Guiding the group through the dark forest, the masked hero dryly announces it is time to start the march. 1 week later, in the bustling city of Aldia, a guard captain yells, demanding an urgent report be delivered immediately. Standing near the main entrance, the MC observes the heavy military movement crossing the gates. Very relieved by the successful escape, the girls follow the imposing figure behind the walls in total safety. At that moment, the captain recognizes the missing hostages and runs toward them, celebrating their return. The young red-haired woman thanks the soldiers for their concern, but makes a point to mention they only survived because of the guy's protection. In light of this revelation, the military officer and his subordinates bow with reverence, expressing deep gratitude for the heroic rescue. Directing the traffic, the man asks the three nobles to wait safely inside the guardhouse until their family's official escorts arrive. Before stepping away, Nina turns to her travel companion and softly asks what his next steps are. Caught off guard by the nun's question, he points to himself and simply answers that he plans to rest in the city for a while. Karen chimes in, explaining they would like to know if he has any plans or pending missions for his organization. Hidden in the metal, Kai quickly pieces together that the girl is asking about reporting the successful rescue to his supposed spy bosses. Without having any superiors in this new world, the outsider decides he will make up any lame excuse to get out of the interrogation. Overhearing the conversation, the captain insists the warrior should come with them to receive fair rewards, and offer the girls also back up. The MC shoots down the idea immediately, feeling his body's absolute limit and just needing a bed before he passes out from exhaustion. Keeping up the authoritative aura, Kai cuts the goodbyes short, telling the girls to follow the guards and only rest once they are home. Karen crosses her arms, complaining about all the caution, while the nun gets emotional, thanking him for all the protection they received on the journey. Right after, he reaches out his metallic hand and gives little Remy an affectionate pat on the head, telling the girl she needs to take care of herself too. Accepting the gentle gesture, the child nods, agreeing with the instructions from the warrior who saved her life. Mission accomplished. The outsider hands over all the responsibility of protecting the group to the leader of the city guards. Overcome with respect, the captain bows before the armor once more, begging for the chance to repay the heroic deed in the near future. Uncomfortable with the spotlight, the guy turns down the honors and cuts the conversation off, saying he is going to head straight to the city center. Faced with his humble refusal, the officer says goodbye, guaranteeing that the mysterious man will always be welcome in the Aldia region. Without looking back, the savior walks down the cobblestone street under the watchful eye of the entire military garrison. Still shocked by that guy's presence, the commander whispers to his men that the dude's power level is something surreal. One of the soldiers confirms the intimidating vibe, saying anyone can tell he is an unbeatable monster just by looking at him. Justifying the fear, he explains his evaluation skill picked up an insanely rare item from a level 8 dungeon. The other guards listen to his words in terror, knowing that only the two biggest clans in the world ever dared declare such a hellish place. Hyping up the achievement, the garrison leader points out that he dealt with the brutal criminal faction without getting a single scratch on his armor. Observing the warrior's actions, he praises the man's intelligence for always prioritizing the group's safety over his own honor. As the armored figure fades into the crowd, the troop unanimously concludes they are dealing with a formidable veteran. Curious about the mystery surrounding the outsider, a rookie guard confesses he would have loved to see the real face behind the dark helmet. Hearing the confession, a buddy scolds the rookie's lack of action, accusing him of slacking on the rule to check the ID of anyone entering the city. But the captain defends the choice, asking how they could have the nerve to treat someone who risked his life for 3 nobles like a common thug. Sold on the sensible argument, the officer agrees that questioning the character of a warrior strong enough to hand out legendary elixirs would be asking for trouble. Shocked by the word, another troop member joins the circle, demanding to verify the story about the rare extreme healing potions. Calm amidst the general surprise, the soldier explains that the fatal injuries and the heiress's broken leg vanished without leaving a single physical trace. He adds that he heard from the girls themselves that the hero tossed the legendary vials to them as if they had 0 value. Processing the absurdity, the Watchmen agree in unison that everything that anonymous adventurer did since the rescue is pure madness. Understanding the gravity of having someone like that in their territory, the leader puts on a serious face and demands the top guilds be notified right away. Yelling, he sets the whole troop running through the streets with the goal of sending emergency reports as fast as possible. All this panic is justified because Karen belongs to the ducal house responsible for the highest decisions in the kingdom of Aldia. Likewise, the fragile Nina is a direct descendant of the founder of the sacred church and carries enormous political weight on her shoulders. To round out the untouchable trio, little Remy is quite simply the universal heiress of all commerce in that prosperous nation. Combining the hostage's status with the warrior's power, the guard leader reflects in awe about the man's chill attitude in turning down fame and fortune from the elite. Evaluating the evidence about the cleared dungeons, the military officer concludes the armor undoubtedly belongs to a great battle lord. With his own certainties set, the captain declares that individual can only be a ghost from the extermination troops under the Empire's direct control. Oblivious to the delusions cooked up by the soldiers at the gate, Kai walks around amazed by the flawless cobblestones of the main streets. Observing the architecture of the surrounding scenery, he is impressed to see that the buildings are exact copies of the textures he saw in the game. Stopping at a central square, the MC easily spots the majestic Treasure Hunters Guild building. Even though his explorer side wants to turn the whole metropolis upside down, he admits to himself that the weakness in his body has already crossed all bearable limits. Besides the lack of energy, the rookie adventurer starts getting deeply bothered by the civilians staring at him wherever he goes. For no apparent reason, a boy running down the street points excitedly in the direction of the dark hero. Totally confused by the commotion, the guy figures the downtown locals should be tired of seeing warriors wearing metal plates on a daily basis. Justifying his choice of outfit, Kai concludes his magical gear's high rarity must look way too flashy. Afraid of causing a scene wherever he goes, he decides to pick up the pace and quickly duck into a cheap inn. However, the kid keeps following the armor closely, amazed by the figure that looks like it stepped right out of a bedtime story. Startled, the outsider freezes in his tracks when he sees the little kid hugging his armor's shin guard with sparkling eyes. At the same time, far away from that civilian district, an exhausted Karen walks through the luxurious garden, greeted by her own father's surprised voice. Clinging to his daughter after weeks of mourning, the noble leader cries like a baby, while she awkwardly tries to console his clingy hug. At the palace, Karen's dad cries, hugging his daughter after weeks of grieving, while she embarrassingly asks the noble to calm down. Wiping his face, he agrees with the young woman and mentions that her leg was actually healed thanks to the universal elixir. The noble explains in awe that, even with all their family's influence, they would never be able to get their hands on that medicine. But that mysterious man just handed out the incredibly valuable potions as if they were the most common thing in the world. When she tried to thank him, the girl reveals the warrior did not even cash in a favor or ask for anything in return down the line. Intrigued, the Duke checks the reports and wants to confirm if this supposed intelligence agent rescued all of them all by himself. Annoyed, the redhead raises her voice and asks if it was not her own dad who sent the spy to save them. The head of the family denies it, explaining he would have gotten the potion a long time ago if he had connections with someone on that level. Sensing the confusion, Karen deduces he came from the higher-ups, but her dad thinks the man just lied to calm them down. Assessing the situation, the Duke concludes the secret agent identity perfectly justifies his cautious behavior. The girl puts the pieces together and assumes their savior already had inside intel on the crime syndicate. Even though the warrior's true mission is a mystery, she insists they must send an official thank you letter. Willing to help, the dad warns that doing so might put a target on the guy's back and lead to severe punishment. The noble seriously explains that an intelligence agent must never have their true identity blown. Karen is shocked by the revelation and asks if the patriarch really knows which organization the masked man belongs to, getting a yes. The Duke reveals a message arrived a little while ago, stating the kidnappers were caught near the city of Wafer. Looking at the map, the young woman finally understands why Kai knew the enemies would be watching that exact region. Now it all makes sense. The long way through the forest was a purely strategic choice. Reading the documents on the desk, the dad confirms that the mysterious outsider's origin is exactly what he suspected. Even without official confirmation, he says the group responsible for busting the syndicate was the Imperial unit Vertar. Hearing that name, Karen's eyes go wide, completely horrified by the crazy weight of that information. Vertar is a ruthless secret organization under the direct control of the capital, in charge of keeping public order. Rumors say the faction is made up exclusively of the greatest treasure hunters in the world. It is a true elite within the elite, the squad that gives any criminal nightmares. The noble assumes their savior must hold a commanding rank in there since he can operate solo with so much power. Worried, he demands his daughter never spill the beans on that identity because blowing his cover would be a betrayal of the hero's goodwill. Looking out at the city of Aldia, the Duke states they need to repay this debt as soon as possible. To do that, the leader tells Karen to call Lifia and give the order to find him using the dark armor as a clue. Determined to return the favor, the redhead quickly agrees and hurries out through the lavish hall. Alone in the office, the dad leans back in his chair, sighing heavily at the massive political mess that is formed. In his thoughts, the noble hopes the guy has enough pull not to get punished for breaking the rules. He is also sure that Nina and Remy's families will soon reach the exact same conclusion about the Imperial unit. The next day, inside a regular inn in the city, the MC devours a plate of meat, amazed by the taste. The guy behind the counter is pleased with the compliment about the food and strikes up a friendly chat with the new customer. Cleaning a glass, the man asks straight up if the kid is the warrior who had been walking around in that dreaded black armor. The innkeeper confesses his initial panic, but praises the guy's manners compared to other treasure hunters. Noticing the different background, the bartender pours him another drink while Kai confirms he came from a place far, far away. The chill conversation is cut short when the inn's door bursts open and a knight walks into the place. With a firm posture, the guard asks if any warrior in black armor stopped by. Immediately, the innkeeper looks straight at the MC, who freezes in sheer panic at the corner table. Shaking with nerves, Kai puts his hands together, silently begging the man not to blow his cover. The bartender chuckles under his breath and waves his hand, finding the whole situation a ridiculous overreaction. Impatient with the stalling, the soldier scowls and warns he is going to repeat the question more clearly. Seeing the desperation of the outsider who keeps begging with his hands, the innkeeper realizes how serious the problem actually is. Changing his tune, the owner lies to the officer, claiming no man matching that description has shown up there. Satisfied with the negative answer, the guard leaves. As soon as the coast is clear, the man leans on the counter and demands to know what the kid got himself into. But before he can answer, a high-ranking nun from the sacred church appears asking the exact same question. The innkeeper starts panicking seeing the clergy involved, while Kai hides his face again, begging for cover. Keeping up the lie, the merchant acts cool and repeats to the religious woman that he has not seen any warrior in black clothes. The nun thanks him for his time and leaves the place empty-handed. The peace lasts just a few seconds before the door swings wide open again, this time with a merchant guard looking for the armor. Exhausted by all the pressure, the bar owner starts freaking out while the MC drops his head on the table. Defeated. Coughing to hide the stress, the man repeats his lying script flawlessly for the new investigator. The warrior accepts the info and runs off to search the neighboring streets. When the silence finally returns to the room, the bartender focuses all his attention on the kid who will not stop shaking. Kai turns pale. The secret agent charade seems to have completely fallen apart. The innkeeper pulls his own hair in despair, yelling to know what he did to tick off the three major factions. Not understanding any of the political drama, the hero mumbles in terror that he might have accidentally committed some serious crime. Fearing his business will get ruined, the man kicks the outsider out, demanding he fix this mess before it is too late. Walking through the dark streets, Kai gulps and desperately asks himself what he needs to do to survive this manhunt. Far from there, in the comfort of the ducal mansion, Karen shows concern, asking if her older sister is not pushing herself too hard. The lady sitting on the bed gently touches her own feet and assures her the miraculous recovery is totally real. Right after, the woman kindly thanks Karen for always being by her side, helping out during the tough times. Sighing lightly, she admits she is happy her sister is healed, but will miss their daily care routine. Quickly changing the subject, the noble shifts focus to talk about something much more serious regarding the rescue. She indignantly asks how the army still has not found such a flashy warrior wearing black armor. Analyzing the flaws in the search, the woman figures their savior is actively wiping his tracks across the imperial capital. With her arms crossed, she reveals that the family patriarch already handed over all the confidential details about the mission. The sister wonders if the hero is facing severe punishments for using up such valuable universal potions on the group. Deep in thought, she concludes the masked man manipulated the situation perfectly to keep the hostages from feeling any guilt. With a sharp look, the young woman understands his main goal was to hide his true faction's existence. Sitting at the table, Karen sighs, feeling down, and hopes the military authorities do not sentence the guy because of them. Finding the scene amusing, the older sister notices the redhead's rare sadness as she defends the warrior, bringing up his solo rescue. In a playful tone, the noble teases the youngest and promises she never said all this worrying was a flaw. Impatient with the situation, Karen calls out to someone in the room. With a love-struck look, she mentions that other girls said the exact same thing about the hero being amazing. The redhead recalls Nina and Remy, stating they also told very similar stories about the rescue. Sighing with love, the noble confesses she is the one who thinks about him the most, while her sister jokes telling her not to get too carried away. Totally embarrassed, the girl raises her voice and denies she is doing that. Meanwhile, at the inn, the owner tells Kai there is nothing wrong with laying low, but staying there will only make things worse. He explains that rumors are spreading all over town and the search for the masked man has gotten intense. Gripping his mug tightly, the MC sweats cold bullets, realizing he is the only suspect in all this mess. The bartender agrees, saying the kid is the only one who fits the wanted description to a T. Terrified by the rumors, the boy pictures what kind of punishment he is going to get, fearing he might even get banned from the city. Trying to cool things down, the merchant advises the adventurer not to try switching inns right now. The man reveals they are offering a reward of 3 million for anyone who snitches on the Dark Armor's hideout. Shocked by the absurd amount, Kai yells, asking why the bartender did not just turn him in already. Keeping his cool, the innkeeper says he has hidden him this far and assumes the kid is a pretty big deal. The hero tries to deny his VIP status, sweating nervously, but the bar owner just brushes off the excuse. Getting back to the point, the bartender suggests the kid gear up tomorrow and go for a walk around town. The man cheerfully promises it is a really great place to have fun and relax a little. Walking down the streets, the outsider reflects that, even running the risk of getting kicked out the next day, he is going to enjoy it. He sighs in relief for having the chance to enjoy the capital at least a bit while he still has time. The hero strolls peacefully, checking out the local architecture during the late afternoon. Looking up, Kai spots the massive clock tower and remembers climbing it in the game at this exact same time. However, the adventurer lowers his head, remembering the entrance fee was always ridiculously expensive. Accepting his likely fate of banishment, he swallows his frustration, pays the fee, and climbs the place's grand staircases. As soon as he reaches the top of the lookout, the kid freezes, surprised by what he finds up there. Stunned, the MC runs straight into an unexpected visitor on the floor. A red-haired woman wearing an elegant black dress and a mask on her face shares the lookout space with him. Noticing the outsider's presence, the disguised noble calmly turns in his direction. Kai is stuck in place, not knowing how to react to that mysterious figure. Breaking the awkward silence, he tosses out a hesitant greeting, trying to be polite. Keeping her classy posture, the woman returns the greeting with the same formality. In the player's mind, a memory pops up about an in-game rumor of finding a secret character inside the tower. Even though he doubts the woman is that special game encounter, he decides to keep his guard up just in case. Enjoying the sunset, the mysterious lady comments that the excellent view is the perfect spot to clear her head. Looking at the city through the stained glass, the kid totally agrees with her statement. Striking up a conversation, the hero gathers his courage and asks why someone like her would come to a place like this. The masked girl answers that she came for the same Riasanto to cool her head, which helps Kai get the picture. Shifting the tone of the conversation, she asks if the outsider knows the man wearing the black gear. The MC freezes instantly upon hearing the exact description of his dark armor. Playing off his nerves, the guy scratches his cheek and casually mentions that this man has become a pretty hot topic lately. The noble confirms, revealing that a lot of people are looking for him, including herself, as she wishes to meet him. Fearing the worst, the adventurer asks with a shaky voice if this mysterious warrior committed a crime. The woman quickly waves it off, assuring him he is not being hunted for anything like that. Confused, remembering the guards interrogating the inn, Kai asks what the real reason for the search would be then. Keeping the mystery alive, the lady in black apologizes and lets him know that part of the story is strictly confidential. The outsider accepts the apology, sighing in relief on the inside to confirm he is at least not a wanted criminal. Hearing a noise down the street, the woman announces her escort carriage has finally arrived. Looking towards the window, she catches the kid's attention one more time before leaving. Kai turns around attentively and asks what she wants. Handing him a coin, the noble states that maybe they will make some progress with the search soon. Giving a little giggle, she thanks the outsider for his concern and walks down the stairs with a lot of elegance. The hero stands still at the top of the tower, just watching the fancy figure vanish from sight. Surrounded by silence, he asks himself who on earth that weird person was. Outside, the woman meets up with Karen, thanking her for coming to pick her up personally. The older sister takes off her mask and cheers the youngest up, saying that if they go out looking like that, they might find their savior. Karen pouts and asks if she is just an extra in the search, but the noble assures her they are both very important. With a gentle expression, the lady in black apologizes for teasing her. Despite the drama, the rescued girl confesses she was happy to have gone to pick her sister up from the outing. Enjoying the ride, the older one mentions she ended up bumping into someone at the clock tower. The youngest frowns and finds it very sketchy, figuring the tourist was investigating the rumors about them. The sister agrees she was also on the defensive at first, but chilled out right after she chatted with the guy. Pleased, the lady in black recalls that the kid talked to her in a very casual and fun way. Not wanting to waste the opportunity, she confesses she even asked if the tourist knew anything about the armored warrior. Karen sighs, frustrated by the lack of clues, mentioning their dad thinks the hero already bolted from the city. Right then, the sister interrupts the conversation, recalling that the tower kid said something very specific about the masked man. Noticing the sudden switch, the redhead curiously asks what this tourist looked like physically. The noble describes the guy as a calm, charming man who had a scar near his eye. Searching her memory, the lady points out that the mark was on the left side of his face, exactly as Karen had described before. With her eyes wide open, the youngest jumps up and aggressively throws the carriage window open. Yelling, the girl orders the driver to do a U-turn and head back to the clock tower ASAP. Freaked out by her sister's panic, the older woman asks if she is sure about what she is doing. Karen replies frantically that the scar on his left eye proves the tourist has a huge chance of being the secret agent. The redhead tensely reveals that their savior's looks were a closely guarded secret kept strictly between her and their dad. Hearing this, the lady in the black dress goes into shock, realizing the gravity of her slip-up at the tower. Wasting no time, the luxury carriage speeds through the night streets, totally changing its route. Gripping her sister's shoulders tight, Karen shakes the woman, demanding to know why she did not mention this detail sooner. Desperate, Karen drags her older sister out of the carriage and runs toward the square. Wasting no time, the two of them run up the massive clock tower staircases as fast as they can. However, upon reaching the top of the lookout, the noble frustratedly realizes the tourist is already gone. The next day, the sun shines over the Grand Treasure Hunters Guild building in Aldia. Inside, the guildmaster Garag scratches his head, exhausted, trying to understand the total blackout of information. Reading a guard report, he confirms the man in dark armor arrived in the city 3 days ago. The master deduces this warrior single-handedly rescued the 3 grand heiresses from the bandits' clutches. He assumes the savior is a special agent acting on the Empire's orders to resolve the kidnapping. Analyzing the paperwork, the man concludes this theory makes total sense considering all the mystery. Slamming the desk card, the leader strictly orders that absolutely no one dares to make contact with the masked man. He remembers he already warned all the hunters, but fears some rookie might end up bumping into the warrior on the street. In his mind pops the wild rumor that this untouchable monster was seen carrying a child in his arms. The little girl's mother even thanked the big guy for helping her daughter so carefully. Sweating cold bullets, Garrig hopes this supposed secret agent's mission ends soon, and he heads back to the capital. Just then, the office door is violently thrown open by one of the guild's receptionists. Panicked, the staff member announces the untouchable warrior just walked into the building. Totally devastated by the news, the leader internally begs for just a moment of peace. Downstairs, the massive double wooden doors of the main hall slowly open. The imposing outsider in black armor enters the lobby under the watchful eye of everyone present. Kai approaches the counter and formally greets the treasure hunter's headquarters. Trying to keep his composure, Garag approaches the adventurer and welcomes him with extreme politeness. The hunters in the back are shocked to see their tough boss acting so submissive. Ignoring the whispers, the leader tries to figure out the reason behind that supposed invincible monster's visit. Hiding his nerves, the kid stutters and explains he just came to check the place out. The guild master keeps up the forced friendliness and thanks him once again for the masked man's illustrious presence. However, the simple excuse of just looking around leaves the boss super suspicious. Noticing the sudden tension, the hero freezes, thinking he accidentally said something dumb. Garog quickly denies there is any problem, waving his hands to hide his apprehension. In his mind, the leader deduces this friendly visit is actually an Empire recon mission. He concludes the secret agent realized his cover is blown and has now stopped pretending. Amazed, the master admits to himself that this outsider is on a completely insane power level. He recalls he always dreamed of being recruited by those special forces, but never made the cut. Now, seeing the real secret agent right in front of him, the leader grasps the massive gap in strength. The MC shyly asks if it would be possible to check out the guild's office as well. Without hesitating for a second, Grog immediately agrees to show the visitor around. The man guides the masked man up the stairs, offering to let him inspect the place at his own pace. The other adventurers watch the duo walk away with a mix of fear and curiosity. Taking advantage of the downtime, one of the guys suggests they just chill while the boss is busy. A huntress crosses her arms and asks what her coworkers think of this whole bizarre situation. The green-haired guy comments that the warrior seemed full of openings on purpose, just waiting for an attack. Shaking with fear, the girl notes that if even the master backed down, none of them would stand a chance in a real fight. Another adventurer sighs in defeat, guaranteeing they would be completely wiped out in seconds. Laughing at the situation, the guy in green wonders who would win a brawl against that S-rank monster. While listening to the rumors, Kai mentally whines that people keep exaggerating his strength. Away from the group, a hunter wearing a blue scarf watches the scene with a sharp, calculating look. At the guild door, the master politely says goodbye, while the hero heads back out to the city streets. Extremely tense, the kid decides he is never stepping foot in that terrifying place again. He complains that his armor draws so much attention and ruins any chance of flying under the radar. The adventurer gets bummed out for constantly being mistaken for a ruthless tough guy by the locals. Inside the guild, Garog gets confused, remembering the masked guy's version in the stories was way more aggressive. Not understanding the boss's reaction, Kai just walks, asking himself why he got the VIP treatment. Despite the stress, he admits that exploring the bustling city was a pretty cool experience. The MC takes a few more steps and starts thinking about what he should do to enjoy the rest of his day. Touching his chest's metal plate, he acknowledges that sightseeing in that heavy suit is super tough. Suddenly, the warrior stops walking when he hears hurried footsteps coming his way. Running out of breath, Karen approaches, yelling in relief that she finally managed to find the hero. Spotting the fancy carriage behind the girl, Kai recognizes the ducal family crest stamped on the door. The redhead crosses her arms and demands to know where their savior was hiding all these days. Sweating with nerves, the masked man tries to explain himself, saying he was staying at a regular inn. Totally annoyed, the noble snaps back, stating her informants did not find a single clue about that. To justify himself, the boy explains he asked the place's owner for a special favor to lay low. The rescued girl pouts, staying quiet for a moment while she processes the information. She grudgingly admits that a warrior as powerful as him could easily keep that secret. Turning her face away, the noble hides her embarrassment and mumbles that he would not tell the truth anyway. Just then, the older sister steps out of the carriage, calling for Karen, leaving the adventurer in shock. The hero instantly freezes, recognizing the soft voice and red hair of the mystery woman from the clock tower. With a lot of elegance, the woman formally introduces herself as Lipia Dior Aldi and apologizes for the delay. She expresses her deep gratitude for the heroic rescue, ensuring that mere words are not enough. Keeping it polite, a lady asks if her sister's savior would have a little free time today. Startled by the unexpected invite, Kai internally asks himself what the consequences of saying yes would be. Excited, Karen cuts the conversation off, stating he is going straight to their mansion to receive his thanks. Lipia blinks in surprise at the youngest's bossy and rushed attitude towards the imposing warrior. The MC shakes with fear, imagining he will get taken out if he turns down an invite from a ducal family. The redhead shows pure confidence, while the outsider stays frozen by the pressure of the situation. Taking no for an answer, the girl pulls his armored arm and drags him toward the carriage. Trying to smooth things over, Lipia kindly asks the adventurer to at least allow them to show their gratitude. Hugging his armored arm, Karen cheerfully announces they even prepped a super comfy carriage for the ride. However, the outsider is internally panicking, totally lost, and not understanding how he ended up in this situation. The two nobles just keep smiling, glowing because they finally have their savior right there with them. Stuck in the carriage with the sisters, Kai feels like, instead of a guest of honor, he is being taken into custody. The oldest sincerely thanks him for saving their family's reputation, since coming up empty in the search would be a disaster. The hero nods to keep his cool, even though inside he admits he has absolutely no clue how politics work. Right then, Karen totally changes her tune and says she has a major question to ask while she has the chance. The kid freezes, finding it incredibly scary to see the redhead acting so formal and serious out of nowhere. Annoyed by his reaction, the youngest loses her temper, calls the masked man rude, and decides to go back to her usual explosive self. Relieved by her familiar vibe, Kai asks her to get straight to the point and ask whatever she wants. Without beating around the bush, the girl asks about the day of the rescue, bringing up that he used a crazy amount of those legendary potions. She asks if he got in trouble because of that, and if that was the reason he was laying low. The warrior denies it on the spot, guaranteeing there is zero problem since the items always belong to him. Hearing that an average adventurer owns so many mythical elixirs leaves the two sisters entirely shocked. Worried, the woman in black asks if he is sure about that, offering help in case he is hiding how bad the situation is. She begs the savior to at least share the real story behind how he got those items. The outsider is completely lost, not understanding why he cannot follow the logic of the two of them. Sweating cold bullets under his armor, he wonders how on earth he is going to convince the nobles that everything is actually fine. The warrior insists he did not make any decisions he regrets, stating that healing Karen's leg was the only thing that mattered. To end the topic once and for all, he guarantees with a firm voice that he will handle his own problems by himself. The two sisters stay in absolute silence, just staring at the towering savior. Touched, Lipia states their gratitude has no limits, feeling that his noble sacrifice finally makes sense. Taking advantage of the calm, the MC remembers something urgent and lets them know he has a favor to ask the two of them. Curious about the sudden request, Karen leans forward and asks what he wants. As the carriage moves through the city, the masked man explains the issue involves meeting their dad. He confesses that if he ends up acting rude and ticks the Duke off, he needs the girls to step in for him. The sisters widen their eyes in shock when the hero adds that he does not want any kind of payment for the medicine. The redhead yells in disbelief, reminding the boy he used an insanely expensive legendary potion. The outsider shoots back saying he is serious, arguing he is just a regular guy who is terrified of political power. In his mind, Kai reinforces that there is nothing more important in the world than securing his own survival. The heiresses go back to being quiet, processing the adventurer's unusual reasoning. Blushing, Lipia figures his excuse about being just a regular guy is a really clumsy way of hiding his true identity. The youngest also goes speechless, impressed by the skillful way the warrior dodged the money topic. Showing compassion, the lady in black smiles softly and tells him she perfectly understands his reasons. Karen jumps into the conversation, guaranteeing that no matter how rude he ends up being, the Duke would never get mad at their savior. The oldest seals the deal, bringing a massive wave of relief to the tense kid. When they arrive at the huge mansion, the redhead asks if he plans on wearing that heavy armor the whole time. The MC brings his hand to his chest and agrees it would be super rude not to take the suit off in front of the Duke. The girl with pigtails turns red and tries to explain herself, saying she just thought the outfit was inconvenient for him. Completely awkward, the noble quietly confesses she would love to see his face without the helmet. The warrior blinks in confusion at the sudden bluntness from the girl who used to only yell at him. Finding the situation adorable, Libya giggles and jokes that her little sister is being pretty bold. Admiring the outsider in silence, the woman thinks about how genuine he is, never acting with arrogance or contempt. She concludes this man of few words stays focused on acting like a guard, ready just in case something goes south. Watching the youngest look away, the older sister totally gets why she got so attached to the warrior. The woman reflects that, unlike the majority of average treasure hunters in the area, the more fame and power those men get, the more they get consumed by envy and arrogance. As a result, they end up rubbing their status in everyone's faces. But that hero proved to be humble, risking his life against a brutal crime group without demanding a single drop of recognition. Feeling an unpayable debt, Lapia admires the fact that he doesn't exploit their vulnerability, imagining how much he must be adored. Already walking down the mansion's hallways, Kai confesses to being very nervous while Karen complains about his cowardly posture. The boy talks back in his thoughts, regretting that she was rescued by such a pathetic guy. Realizing the offense, the redhead waves her arms desperately, assuring him that she isn't being ungrateful for the help she received. Lipia laughs at the scene, finding it ironic that a member of the Empire's special forces would pretend to be nervous in front of a duke. The noblewoman concludes that the masked man is just playing along with the youngest sister's game, knowing she always finds a reason to bicker. Deepening her thoughts, the woman remembers that, being the daughter of one of the most powerful families, the girl lives surrounded by nobles. Due to the large age gap between these experienced lords and the young heiress, and also because many only approach her with the intention of securing political marriages, Karen was always forced to deal with fake and extremely uncomfortable interactions from an early age. In that society driven by interest, the other nobles never took the time to treat the girl like a normal person. Lipia smiles tenderly, knowing that seeing the hero give so much attention and put up with her sister's tantrums makes her immensely happy. Excited to show the house, the youngest pulls the armored warrior's arm to pick up the pace. The older sister deduces that the adventurer only agreed to ride in the carriage to protect the duke's honor in front of the city, thinking about his refusal of the financial reward for the healing potions. She is moved remembering that he tried to settle a priceless debt by asking for just a silly favor in return. With her heart racing, the noblewoman wonders if there really is anyone else with such a pure character in that world. The woman's face turns completely red as she devises a plan to keep spending time with their savior. Taking the initiative, she directly asks how long the Lord intends to stay in the city. Flashing a charming smile, the heiress offers to provide a luxurious residence in case he decides to live there. Looking through the large stained glass windows, Kai comments that the city is amazing, but his stay depends entirely on his mood. The woman interprets the loose answer as a secret code, deducing that he depends on orders from his superiors in the Empire. She stares at the warrior's metal glove, fascinated by the fact that this man's simple actions are capable of saving thousands of lives. In silence, the older sister questions if the desire to keep him around wouldn't just be an act of selfishness on her part. Despite the doubt, the noblewoman's determined look makes it clear that she doesn't intend to let this hero slip away anytime soon. Resting his hand on his helmet, Kai gets tense trying to process the whole situation. The carriage finally arrives at the ducal family's immense and luxurious property. The vehicle's door is opened right after. Dozens of servants and guards are lined up, giving an official welcome to the estate. The boy is in shock seeing the grandeur of that reception. Karen smiles proudly and explains that this is just their way of showing respect. Stepping out of the carriage, the adventurer shyly comments that there was no need to go that far for him. Holding the girl's hand to help her step down, he hears that the decision was unanimous. The youngest adopts a serious tone, assuring him that she will personally deal with anyone who opposes this respect. Faced with the sudden threat, the guest simply agrees while breaking into a cold sweat. He mentally concludes that the noblewoman seems ready to hand out a terrible punishment to someone. At that moment, the hero turns his attention back to the people approaching the carriage. The captain of the guard and the headmaid formally introduce themselves, thanking him for the illustrious visit. The woman informs him that the masters of the house are already waiting and offers to guide the guest. Karen thanks the staff for the escort, while Kai asks what the two sisters are going to do now. Karen lowers her head and says that the two of them will be waiting in the next room in case they need to step in. She firmly reinforces that they will act immediately if the boy gives the signal. The MC regrets it internally, much preferring that they stayed there with him. Taking advantage of the moment, the captain of the guard steps forward and makes a request with a lot of hesitation. He politely asks the guest to hand over his sword before proceeding. Startled by how easily he hands it over, the man asks if the warrior is sure about this. The hero justifies that it's standard procedure since no one should enter armed in the presence of a duke. In his mind, Kai admits he prefers fighting barehanded anyway. The scene leaves the two sisters and the staff completely surprised. Holding the weapon, the guard is amazed to realize he is holding supreme tier gear. For the adventurer, being without the sword is no sacrifice at all. He remembers that, because he reincarnated with the stats of his original body, he is unable to wield heavy weapons. Back then, Trying to fight with the sword only resulted in the certainty of being taken out before even attacking. Because of that, handing the gear over to the guard makes zero difference to his defense. Kai feels a huge chill, terrified by the idea of finally coming face to face with the Duke. Guided by the headmaid, the guest walks through the mansion's hallways. The sound of the heavy armor echoes through the silent environment. Standing before the large doors, Kai just prays that the meeting ends without any disasters. Meanwhile, outside, the black sword is revealed to be a true, supreme-tier masterpiece. It is an indestructible weapon, carrying only the drawback of making the user's luck completely unstable. Before entering, the warrior had authorized the guard to inspect the blade under supervision. The captain continues holding the gear with reverence as he watches the hero walk away. The large wooden doors close with a dull thud. Wasting no time, Karen runs excitedly toward the knight. The youngest stops in front of the man with her eyes sparkling with curiosity. She demands to see the sword immediately, confessing she was super eager to get a look at it. The captain gives an awkward smile at the heiress's excitement. Analyzing the gear, he notes that the blade looks like a jewel, but doubts its durability. The girl is amazed, admiring the weapon's flawless shine. She asks what the savior's fighting style would be, and the captain deduces he must be a technical and agile fighter. The guard instructs the noblewoman to hold the hilt firmly, using both hands. He asks if she's ready, and finally lets go of the weapon. The girl holds the gear, exuding total confidence. However, the absurd weight of the blade immediately pulls the young woman down. Karen lets out a cry of despair as the sword slips from her hands. The heavy black blade plummets toward the stone floor. The group falls completely silent, paralyzed by the scare. Without any effort, the weapon sliced through the solid cobblestones as if they were paper. Completely panicked, the captain rushes to recover the sword before it causes more damage. The man realizes in terror that a cutting power of that level renders any armor useless. He concludes that the adventurer really is an insane monster, since he prefers fighting bare-handed even having a weapon like that. The guard asks if the youngest is okay, while she murmurs in fear. Trying to maintain order, the knight assures them he will explain the incident to the Duke later. Far away, a teacup rests on the table of a quiet room. The two sisters wait anxiously, sitting on the library sofa. On the other side of the door, the voices reveal the Duke humbly thanking the guest for his presence. Listening to the conversation, Karen notices the submissive tone in her father's voice. She understands that this is exactly why their parents forbade their daughters from joining the meeting. Just by listening through the wood, the girl figures out her parents' posture. It becomes clear that the Duke, a man who always projected an imposing and dignified aura to never be underestimated, is bowing his head. Libya looks away, feeling the weight of that unusual situation. The youngest confesses feeling terrible for forcing her parents to humble themselves before an adventurer. Suddenly, Karen jumps up from the sofa. She wonders if she really has the right to be depressed about this right now. A new thought hits the girl, totally shifting her focus. Breaking the silence, the older sister reminds her that she just destroyed the stone floor at the entrance. Karen panics, imagining her father's fury when he finds out she played with the savior's weapon. Sitting back down, the heiress cries from nervousness, feeling like she only causes trouble for the family. Anxiety takes over the girl as she tries to find a way to escape punishment. Full of regret, the young woman waves her arms in panic, fearing the consequences of her curiosity. Sighing heavily, Karen lowers her head, trying to gather her thoughts after the incident. The young woman tries to comfort herself, thinking she can still make up for the damage at the entrance by being an obedient daughter from now on. At that, she remembers the gentle advice the masked man gave her about enjoying life and doing the things she couldn't before. Libya approaches the youngest on the sofa, asking in a friendly tone if she really has time to sit there sulking. The older sister watches her closely, showing an extremely affectionate expression. Surprised by the sudden approach, the girl looks up to hear what the woman has to say. The noblewoman argues that the adventurer clearly tried to hide his grand intentions by refusing rewards. She asks the girl not to forget that he used a legendary item, knowing full well it could anger the emperor. For this exact reason, the woman states that they should thank him properly and grant whatever he asks for. Sitting on the sofa, Lipi confesses she's been thinking for a long time about why he refuses ordinary payments. She highlights that this constant refusal alone proves that the man isn't just an ordinary citizen. After all, a reward in cash or titles offered directly by a duke would be incredibly tempting for any normal person. whether it's enough money to live in absolute luxury or even introductions to potential suitors in the high nobility. Even understanding the situation, the older sister confesses that after what happened at the clock tower, she wishes to see him without that heavy armor. Completely embarrassed by her own thoughts, the woman admits she prefers to be the only person from whom the hero doesn't hide his true identity. Noticing the obvious passion in her sister's voice, Karen teasingly comments that if she isn't careful, she'll end up monopolizing the savior. Lippia calmly claps back, saying that if the youngest is honest about her feelings, she might even describe what the scar on his face looks like. The direct mention of visual intimacy with the hero leaves the girl completely in shock. Extremely flustered and red-faced, the redhead waves her arms, assuring her she would never think of something like that. After the little embarrassed bickering, a moment of comfortable silence takes over the luxurious library. Breaking the quiet, the older sister clarifies that she isn't trying to monopolize the warrior, but that she really does have a strong interest in him. Taking a sip of tea to hide her nerves, the youngest uses the opening to state that this is one more reason for her sister to stay away from him. Annoyed by the noblewoman's stubbornness, the young girl slams her cup on the saucer, finding the whole conversation completely absurd. While the two talk in the library, the official meeting continues in the mansion's main hall. The Duke and his wife break into a cold sweat, totally tense as they try to figure out what to do during that intimidating visit. Standing in the middle of the room in his dark armor, Kai maintains a rigid and silent posture that deeply intimidates the hosts. The patriarch of the family squeezes his own hands tightly, unable to understand why the guest is being so understanding. In the Lord's mind, the masked man is purposely shrinking his own presence just to protect the homeowner's dignity. Analyzing the situation, the man notices that the adventurer shows not the slightest intention of trying to squeeze abusive favors out of them. Karen's father is absolutely certain that the visitor knows very well he is in a position of power where he could demand absolutely anything he wanted. The Duke reflects with apprehension that the warrior must also know that the Aldia family has no right to refuse any of his requests. After all, being someone with direct ties to the Empire's upper echelon, the hero holds a political status vastly superior to theirs. The noble deduces that the man must have such monstrous backing behind the scenes that the guild or the guards couldn't even touch him. Furthermore, he calculates that if the masked man's goal was to hide his true identity, accepting an ordinary reward would be the best way to avoid drawing attention. Startled by his own logical conclusions, the patriarch glances at his wife, wondering if they are undergoing some kind of imperial test. Despite internally confessing that he has never liked someone so much on the first meeting, the Lord admits he can't read absolutely anything from the guest. At the same time, this total lack of reaction makes the adventurer's presence extremely unsettling for the experienced leader. The dead silence gives off the feeling that the visitor is just waiting to see how the head of the family will handle his obligations. Feeling the crushing pressure of the moment, the Lord steadies his gaze, completely determined to take action worthy of the hero. The MC just keeps standing before them like a true impenetrable fortress without saying a single word. Karen's father assesses that letting the savior leave empty-handed would spark terrible rumors that would destroy the family's name in the city. He understands that not everyone accepts a prize right away, realizing that the warrior's refusal was a warning about his own initial oversight. At that, the noble mentally scolds himself, remembering that this man used a priceless mythical potion just to heal his youngest daughter. Adopting a much friendlier posture, the head of the house states he can't just sit around dwelling on the past, and thanks him for the chance to meet him. Sitting back on the comfortable sofa, he firmly explains that the matter now also involves the family's honor in paying off that gigantic debt. Understanding the host's need to act, Kai finally breaks the silence and replies that he'll leave the matter in their hands. The Duke's wife breaks into a relieved smile, immediately assuring him that taking care of this reward is a great honor for all of them. Hearing the guest's positive and flexible response, the patriarch breathes out, showing that a huge weight has been lifted off his shoulders. The man enthusiastically holds up 3 fingers, announcing that they would like to express all their gratitude by offering 3 valuable assets. The noble unhesitatingly offers the unrestricted use of one of their secluded mansions, a fortune in cash, and the house's unconditional political backing. Next, the couple bows their heads in a gesture of absolute respect, humbly begging him to accept the full package. The Lord maintains a sharp look, having unwavering certainty that offering a base of operations for the Imperial agent was the perfect answer to the test. For the ducal house, that is the perfect opportunity to forge political ties with someone who operates under the emperor's direct orders. Feeling that refusing would cause even more unnecessary misunderstandings, the masked man just agrees to gladly accept the offer. The host breathes easy on the sofa, extremely satisfied to have finally nailed the proposal the visitors supposedly expected. Taking advantage of the much lighter mood, the Duke suggests that his daughters show him the location and interior of the new property today. Kai thanks him for the sudden help and peacefully agrees to leave the tour entirely in the two young women's hands. With the terms set and the problem solved, the noble kindly asks his wife to escort the guest to the next room. The woman stands up with flawless elegance, politely calling the adventurer to accompany her through the estate's hallways. The MC gives a small, silent bow and says goodbye to the lord, letting the patriarch finally relax with his cup of tea. As soon as the large wooden door closes behind the guest, the heavy silence once again dominates the luxurious meeting hall. Sitting alone on the sofa, the Duke's right hand starts shaking uncontrollably after all that built-up tension fades. The Lord fixes his hair while wiping away the cold sweat, admitting to himself that his youngest was truly rescued by a man with an extraordinary presence. Walking down the mansion's hallways, the MC exhales heavily, feeling like all that formality wrecked his nerves. The armored warrior finally enters the spacious waiting room, immediately drawing the attention of the two anxiously waiting sisters. Analyzing the savior's stiff posture, Karen teasingly comments that he doesn't seem nervous about the situation at all. The young man points to his own metal helmet, promptly explaining that his apparent calm is just the result of having his face completely hidden. The redhead gives a warm laugh at the honest answer and kindly asks the guest to make himself at home in there. Collapsing onto the sofa from mental exhaustion, the hero asks in frustration if the young woman couldn't fake it a little better in front of her own parents. Without understanding the guy's drama, the girl argues with gestures that it's completely impossible for someone not to be happy receiving a generous reward from her family. Kai claps back by dropping his shoulders, stating that he is jumping for joy on the inside since, until a few days ago, he was practically dead broke. Despite the financial relief, the guy confesses he is genuinely terrified by the idea of receiving such absurdly valuable prizes from important nobles. He admits that if he were alone when the offer was made, he probably would be punching the air repeatedly out of pure happiness and relief. Watching the anxious way he speaks, the redhead adopts a much more serious tone of voice to make an important comment. The heiress stares right at him, asking if the adventurer is absolutely sure that this is enough and if now wouldn't be the right time to demand more. Mentally, the MC confesses he still doesn't quite get this whole ducal family political backing thing. Resuming his serious posture, Kai replies that this is an adult matter and that she doesn't need to worry. Lippia chimes into the conversation, curious to know if the adventurer is truly satisfied with getting just one of their secluded mansions. The older sister calmly explains that the family owns several properties like that with zero sentimental attachment. Karen quickly argues that it is far from ideal for him to live in a house that size completely alone. The youngest tries to explain that the place is still absurdly huge, even if it's smaller than the family's main estate. Completely awkward, the warrior thinks to himself that a mansion like that definitely wasn't made for just one person. He imagines the family's absurd level of wealth and concludes that nobility is a scary thing. In a sly tone, Lippia asks if the hero plans to invite other people to live there or turn the place into a base. Kai agrees he can call it a base of operations, but assures them that right now he plans to live there alone. In a teasing tone, the woman implies that a famous hunter like him definitely isn't single and must be hiding a lover. The masked man denies the accusation right away, leaving Karen visibly flustered by the direction of the conversation. The youngest sighs in annoyance, thinking her sister is crossing the line with those romantic insinuations. Trying to change the subject, the MC announces he will be away for a while and that they can visit the property whenever they want. The two sisters are filled with pure happiness upon hearing the unexpected invitation from their savior. The armored warrior even promises to give them a spare key so they can get in when he isn't around. He points out that a place that size guarantees a lot of privacy, but if nobody visits, it'll just end up looking haunted. Excited by the idea, Karen states they will make a point of bothering him quite a lot from now on. At that, the young woman brings up a new topic, asking the hero to give them a tour showing off the new house right away. A short time later, The group arrives at the luxurious, secluded mansion that was gifted to the adventurer. The inside of the place features an extremely exquisite living room, ready for use. Every hallway boasts impressive finishes and a space worthy of high nobility. The dining room also has elegant furniture and flawless decor. Noticing the man's surprise, Lipia explains that absolutely everything inside is part of the ducal family's gift. Standing at the door, Kai can barely believe even the furniture is included and questions if he really should accept so much luxury. Karen comments that the savior has a weird sense of humility since he handed out mythical potions like water but hesitates over a house. Overcome by mental exhaustion, the MC walks to the spacious sofa and throws himself onto the seat without any ceremony. Noticing the guest's surprise, he apologizes for his lack of manners and suggests they sit down and get comfortable. The youngest blinks in confusion, asking if he acted that fast just out of concern for her leg that was just healed. Without understanding the girl's deduction, the masked man honestly answers that he only sat down because he was tired. The warrior warns that kids shouldn't push themselves so hard, which makes the girl yell in annoyance that she isn't a kid. She crosses her arms and pouts, while the man just casually agrees to avoid any arguments. Internally, Kai deduces that letting the Duke's daughter pass out from exhaustion would spark terrible rumors about him. Watching their clumsy interaction, Lipia gives a discreet laugh, finding the scene adorable. In an ironic tone, the masked man offers his own armored lap in case she really refuses to use the soft sofa. In the MC's head, any normal person would choose the furniture over the uncomfortable metal armor. To his total surprise, Karen takes him up on the offer without blinking and announces she is going to sit on him. The adventurer freezes completely, confused as he realizes his logical plan failed miserably. Without hesitating, the young woman makes herself comfortable on the armored hero's lap, leaving him totally speechless. Breaking a cold sweat, Tai asks what she is doing, reminding her that the armor must be very uncomfortable. The girl admits the metal hurts a little, agreeing that the sofa would definitely be a better option. Taking advantage of their distraction, the older sister sneaks away down the hall. Before disappearing, Lipia comments from afar that the youngest is very lucky, making Karen stick her tongue out childishly. The older noblewoman sports a teasing expression, making it clear she felt a little jealous of the situation. Turning her attention back to the warrior, Karen asks why he still insists on wearing that armor indoors. Trying to play it cool, the man replies he prefers keeping his protection on just in case something unexpected happens. In his mind, the guy admits he would love to take the helmet off, but fears Lipia might recognize him from the encounter at the clock tower. Looking for an escape route from that dangerous topic, the warrior looks away, trying to figure out what to do. He raises his heavy gauntlet with a slow and calculated movement. With a surprisingly gentle gesture, Kai pats Karen on the head. Completely embarrassed, the youngest swats the adventurer's hand away, yelling at him to stop treating her like a kid. The MC accepts the scolding and orders her to move to the sofa before she ends up hurting herself even more on the armor. Returning to the room, Lipia comments that it's impressive the Duke trusted the two of them alone with him. The noblewoman explains that, due to the lack of info on the hero, the standard procedure would be having a maid do the tour. She proudly concludes that her father judged the masked man as someone completely trustworthy. Kai silently agrees, while the youngest grumbles on the sofa, jealous of the attention her sister is getting. The MC tries to calm the annoyed girl with a few more head pats, figuring the Duke really is an excellent judge of character. Karen defends her dad, stating it would be impossible not to trust someone who spent a mythical item on them. Faced with that bulletproof argument, Lipia uses the opening to officially invite him to dinner at the main estate. The hero politely declines the offer, making Lipia joke about the supposedly busy life he leads. The adventurer plays along, agreeing, and asks the two to let him know before they leave the city, receiving an immediate no from Karen. In reality, the guy is scared stiff of having to face the Duke again due to the massive social class gap between them. Trying to keep up the secret agent facade, he makes up an excuse that the current situation in the city is very complicated. Karen looks down, upset by the excuse, but Lipia comforts her, saying that important missions are just like that. Determined not to lose touch, the youngest decides she will extend her stay in Aldia for as long as possible. In his thoughts, the hero laments that the other important girls he saved must also be looking for him. Karen notices the warrior's silence and tries to guess who he could be thinking about with so much focus. Bothered by the distance, the young woman slides across the sofa cushions to get close to her savior again. She stops right next to the masked man, staring at his dark helmet with uncontrollable curiosity. Across the room, Libya makes a subtle hand gesture which soon catches her little sister's eye. Without any filter, the girl rats her out, saying the noblewoman was signaling for her to try lifting his armor's visor. Kai's eyes widen in panic underneath the metal, hearing the two guests' absurd plan. Karen fearlessly reaches for the helmet, totally ignoring the hero's warnings about the risks of doing that. Libya scolds the youngest, demanding she get off the warrior, kicking off a new childish argument between the two. Acting on pure survival instinct, the MC firmly grabs the girl's wrist to protect his biggest secret. Libya calls her little sister out, saying that if she is jealous, she should just admit it once and for all. Karen gets flustered, questioning that idea, while the masked man thinks to himself that the girl doesn't look jealous in the slightest. At that, the adventurer warns the older noblewoman, stating she really shouldn't tease the girl like that. Libya reacts with pure shock at getting this unexpected scolding from the hero. Totally embarrassed, she indignantly asks why he rejects her but ends up caving to her little sister's whims. The MC explains himself right away, arguing that the noblewoman is gorgeous and high class, so he doesn't want to cause any misunderstandings. Gripping her own dress, the woman agrees that she really does get a lot of marriage proposals all the time. However, she soon breaks into a smile and very calmly reveals that she is still completely single. Kai confesses that this is pretty surprising to him, while Karen just watches the conversation lounging comfortably. The noblewoman explains that suitors end up getting too intimidated to follow through, making the adventurer think this is all very complicated. Feeling empathetic, the masked man admits he perfectly understands the guy's side, since trying to impress someone so pretty is no easy task. Annoyed by the chat, the youngest interrupts to say her sister is needy, and men run away afraid of embarrassing themselves around her. The hero tells the girl to drop the awkward subject, clapping back that she has no room to talk since she is still sitting on his lap. Libya ironically suggests the girl try tapping the sofa to feel the difference, while Karen just pokes the metal armor. In his thoughts, the guy wonders what the real reason is for all this stalling, unable to figure out where that attitude is leading. Ignoring the warning, the redhead suddenly gets up and jumps onto the soft sofa cushion next to the hero. Right after, she quickly scoots over the furniture to get close again. She finally sits in the right spot and asks the MC to notice her drastic change in attitude. To top it off, the young girl shoots a charming wink at the armored warrior. Totally lost, Kai has no idea what to do, but the girl states she would be very happy if they kept talking like this. Watching the adorable scene, the older noblewoman gently comments that she had never seen her sister act this way before. With the mood more relaxed in the mansion, the visitors finally thank him for all the help they received on that long day. Libya shows all her gratitude for the hero's attention, recognizing the value of the time he dedicated to them. The woman announces that the third gift is the ducal family seal, which is something more complex that should take about 3 days to arrive. She promises to return in person to discuss the administration of the new estate, and the adventurer just goes along with the plan. Before leaving, the youngest says goodbye, asking her savior to take good care of himself until their next meeting. The girl keeps a sincere and deeply affectionate look aimed exclusively at him. The MC waves back and advises the young girl to go straight home to ease her parents' hearts. Very excited, Karen pulls her sister by the arm to leave, officially wrapping up the visit. The large living room door slowly closes, leaving the masked hero completely alone once again. Outside the property, the ducal family's luxurious carriage starts rolling away through the city streets. Still inside the house, the warrior finishes waving goodbye to his illustrious guests with a friendly gesture. With no one around, he finally takes off the heavy helmet and celebrates the chance to breathe free from that suffocating armor. Meanwhile, inside the moving carriage, the youngest relaxes her body, admitting the tour was wonderful. The redhead tells her sister she had so much fun, she ended up totally losing track of time. Clenching her fists, the girl confesses very honestly that what she really wanted was to stay longer at the mansion. Libya wholeheartedly agrees and takes the chance to tease the girl's luck for being complimented by the hero. In a very teasing tone, the woman points out that the masked man even made a point of calling her by her first name during the chat. The young girl blushes and deduces that someone famous could only act so casually if they were part of an elite faction. Changing the subject, the youngest accuses the older one of dragging out the visit just to try to see the savior's real face. The The girl figures her sister's interest makes sense, since he was the one mainly responsible for the rescue. Lippia keeps her thoughts distant, strongly suspecting that the adventurer is the mysterious guy from the clock tower. Squeezing her own hands, the noblewoman whispers a confession that she really was very anxious to find out his identity. Noticing the other's frustration, Karen tells her not to feel down because she plans to draw the hero's face as soon as they get back. The older sister appreciates the thought, but shoots down the idea right away, knowing the girl's art skills are terrible. Totally offended by the rejection, the youngest crosses her arms and yells indignantly that her sister draws way worse than she does. During their childish bickering, Lippia notices something at the end of the street through the carriage window, cutting the conversation short. In the distance, the MC's figure can be seen calmly walking down the streets with his face completely exposed. The noblewoman's eyes immediately widen as she recognizes the exact features of the mysterious guy from the festival. Not understanding the reason for such sudden shock, Karen calls her sister's name, trying to snap the woman out of that trance. The girl firmly holds her older sister's face, asking once again what stole her attention like that. Lippia's mind is filled with the clear image of the dark-haired adventurer she met that night. With the visual confirmation she wanted so badly, a faint smile of pure satisfaction forms on the woman's lips. Lippia comments in an amused tone that the masked man made a point of teasing her with his secret until the very last possible second. The youngest is shocked by the unexpected revelation, finally understanding that the hero and the guy from the tower are the same person. Very confident in her discovery, the older sister confirms the suspicion without a shadow of a doubt. At that, Lippia starts to ramble, asking if the girl thinks that isolated nighttime encounter was just a mere coincidence. Deep in thought, she concludes that if he were a spy agent, it would make total sense for him to stealthily escape the chaos all the way up there. The noblewoman absurdly deduces he predicted the youngest sister's arrival at that spot just to check on her leg's condition from afar. Completely blinded by her own theory, she starts to firmly believe the adventurer planned every detail with her in mind. Charmed by the guy's supposed tactical genius, the older sister sighs lovingly, praising his immense kindness. She imagines the warrior must have suffered severe punishments from the Empire's higher-ups for using a mythical item on his own. Recalling the hero's selfless advice about freedom, she is impressed by the fact that he claimed to never have regrets. To the woman, the masked man carefully chose every word just to erase any trace of a feeling of debt. Analyzing every action, the noblewoman marvels at the conclusion that this unshakable humility is the true mark of someone immensely powerful. She goes even further, blindly believing he was at the tower keeping stealthy watch against possible criminals. The more she thinks about the situation, the more Lippia is amazed by the idea of him acting alone in the shadows to protect everyone. The heroic and mysterious image of the young man is deeply engraved in the passionate young aristocrat's mind. Overcome by a strong and uncontrollable admiration, she whispers that the warrior is an absolutely wonderful man. Very anxious for the future, the woman tells her sister she can barely wait for the 3 days to pass so she can see him again. Noticing the other's obvious infatuation, the youngest points out directly that her sister has the face of a total daydreamer. Lippia ignores the tease and reflects once again on how much the adventurer supposedly cares about their safety. Motivated by these rushed conclusions, the aristocrat decides she will do everything possible to get much closer to the hero. Hearing the bold statement, the youngest adopts a serious posture, determined not to be left behind in the silent rivalry for the guy. In the end, the two sisters share the same feeling of extreme gratitude and interest, ready to strengthen their bond with their savior. Karen walks with a heavy expression, regretting that her father is someone completely unreachable at the moment. By her side, Lippia silently wonders what the Duke's true reaction to all this would be. The tension in the air is broken when the youngest suddenly lets out a loud sneeze. Meanwhile, outside an inn in the city, the hustle and bustle continues smoothly during the day. Washing dishes, the guildmaster Garrett confesses he saw it coming since the guest didn't return the night before. Sitting at the counter in armor, the masked hero calmly enjoys his breakfast. With a full mouth, Kai announces he won't be living in the room anymore, but promises he will keep showing up for the food. The adventurer praises the dish, prompting the redhead to ask if he really liked the simple meal that much. Happy with the comment, the man states the establishment's doors will always be open waiting for him. At that, the guildmaster asks where the MC plans to stay, offering his influence to get good rooms in the area. drinking some water, Kai casually explains he got a house and plans to live there for a while. Garog stops what he's doing right away, visibly confused by the unexpected news. The young man confirms the story, detailing that he tried to refuse several times, but the Duke insisted on gifting him the property. The hunter's jaw drops, and he yells that the masked man has got to be kidding with a story like that. Feeling awkward, the MC comments that the noble family went a bit overboard showing their thanks, leaving the man speechless. Trying to compose himself, Garrick warns that receiving an entire mansion from a duke is a massive deal. Kai agrees, thinking only of the physical size of the place, which makes the redhead sigh and warn that's not what it's about. The hunter patiently explains that the amount of properties and lands is a noble family's biggest symbol of power. So, he concludes that giving it that symbol means the Duke judged it much more advantageous to forge a direct connection with the hero. Upon hearing the explanation about politics, the MC realizes the gravity of the mess he got himself into. Staring suspiciously at the young man, Garog seriously asks who he really is. Sweating cold under the armor, Kai tries to play it cool by drinking water and claims to be just a regular guy, but the excuse doesn't fly. To escape the dangerous topic, the warrior drops a very heavy sack onto the wooden counter. The owner of the place inspects the bundle, telling from the metallic clinking that the package is full of money. The hero confirms it and thanks him from the bottom of his heart, saying the advice and the hideout at the inn helped him survive. Panicking, the guildmaster throws his hands up in surrender, refusing to take any payment from such a terrifying man. The MC quickly fires back that using that cowardly excuse doesn't make his friend's situation any better. Kai confesses he is cheap by nature, but felt he owed this for dragging Garog into the middle of an absurd mess. The redhead nods in agreement, admitting he never imagined he would need to hide someone from the Duke himself. Laughing nervously at the memory, he reveals he was sweating bullets through all that tense time in the establishment. Understanding, Kai breaks into a small smile and says he can perfectly imagine his allies' despair. Eyeing the sack of coins, the hunter states his job is to treat guests the best way possible, and the hero says, "Thanks for the stay." The redhead gives a charming wink, pretending to be a badass, but soon gives up and asks if his friend should be laughing at this embarrassment. Putting on the heavy black helmet, the adventurer adjusts his gear and prepares to leave for good. The owner of the establishment waves from afar, politely asking him to come visit them again in the future. On his way out, the warrior says goodbye, promising he will show his face around there again. The front door closes with the gentle ring of the bell, leaving Garog alone with the gift. Letting out a long sigh, the man slides down the counter and curls up on the floor to calm his nerves after that chat. Opening the fabric sack, he is blinded by the intense glow of countless solid gold coins. Shocked by the absurd fortune in his hands, the hunter murmurs that this has to be some kind of bad joke. Curled up in the shadows, he spirals, thinking how a guy who calls himself cheap would have the guts to donate so much cash. Far from there, the imposing architectural structure of the Holy Church stands out in the city's sunlit landscape. Inside the grand prayer hall, a voice calls out, echoing through the silence. Sister Nina, cured of her blindness, asks with flushed cheeks for them to stop squeezing her face. Her older sister Marie ignores the request and holds the girl's face affectionately, amazed to finally see what she looks like. Hurriedly fixing her uniform collar, the young girl indignantly asks who her sister thinks she is to be treated like this. Impatient with the joke, Nina points out that this is already the 7th time the woman has replayed that same scene. With an annoyed pout, the girl crosses her arms and swears she isn't acting in this play on purpose. Marie sits calmly on the wooden bench, warning that the younger one's vocabulary is still way too rude for a woman of the cloth. Next, she warns that sitting with her legs crossed in that relaxed way totally ruins her angelic appearance. Trying to dodge the scolding, the youngest fake coughs and argues it's no big deal if no outsiders are watching. Looking down, the young woman prepares a new argument to justify her casual behavior. In the blink of an eye, Nina assumes a radiant posture of pure holiness, proving her skill at acting when needed. Startled by the sudden celestial energy, Marie backs away a little and asks her sister to stop staring at her like that. Recovering her calm, the older sister points out that since the miraculous healing, the girl has been trying hard to look more formal. In a warm tone, she adds there's zero harm in letting her guard down every once in a while between them. Observing the temple's quiet atmosphere in silence, Nina mentally disagrees with that idea. The truth is, ever since she got her sight back, The young nun has been enjoying every single second of her day with a bright smile. The older sister notices the positive change, seeing the genuine joy that is now part of her little sister's daily routine. This cheerful behavior is the polar opposite of the recent past, with a girl lived buried in the depression of her former condition. Going back to the miracle, Marie comments in awe how the black-armored knight manages to make heroic deeds look easy. She points out how insane it was that the man rescued her sister single-handedly and even healed her injuries for free. Nina confirms the story, highlighting with a lot of pride that he kept no less than 3 of those mythical flasks on him. Clasping her hands with blushing cheeks, the young girl states that the savior has a flawless face and a perfect heart. Teasing her, Marie figures the guy would be her type too, since the youngest has no frame of reference after being blind. Laughing at the youngest outrage, the woman encourages the nun to take advantage of her age and try to win the mysterious hero over. On the flip side, she warns that a man capable of giving away elixirs freely draws the world's attention, guaranteeing hundreds of rivals. Confident, Nina lifts her head, claiming her young age makes her the competitor with the highest odds of winning this contest. Pinching the girl's cheek, Marie has fun seeing how completely hyped she got over the idea of romance. The nun just smiles sweetly, making zero effort to hide her crush on the warrior who pulled her out of the dark. The chill chat is interrupted when another religious sister opens the door, warning that it's time for the two to take their posts. Immediately, Nina puts on her holy aura of compassion and accepts the order with a soft and flawless voice. Keeping up the celestial act, she turns her head politely asking if her sister is ready to join her. Still baffled by the little sister's instant personality switch, Marie gulps and stutters in agreement. In the dark of the hallway, the young nun keeps a relentless focus, saving her true feelings for her next chance to see the hero. The Ansage sisters' routine goes on dedicated to the church's sacred duties. Even with their daily chores, the duo eagerly awaits the day they'll be able to meet their great hero again. The imposing figure of the black-armored warrior stays alive and strong in the nun's memory. 3 days pass since the rescue, and Marie enjoys a moment alone on the garden bench, completely exhausted. Libya shows up out of nowhere at the spot, noticing the silver-haired woman's fatigue. The nun recognizes her friend's voice right away, quickly excusing herself, saying she is just on her rest break. Surprised by the unexpected visit, the sister comments that the aristocrat shouldn't be in the back garden without official permission. The noblewoman just gives a relaxed giggle, telling her friend to stay seated and relax. The quiet and isolated garden setting offers the perfect backdrop for a more private chat between the two. Enjoying the peace, Libya settles onto the bench next to the nun to catch up. Curious, Marie immediately asks about Karen's whereabouts, since the woman is usually accompanied by the youngest. The redhead points off into the distance, explaining her sister is talking to Nina outside while they tidy up the grounds. At that, the nun deduces the visit means the ducal family finally managed to thank the savior properly. Libya confirms the story, revealing her little sister got so attached to the adventurer, she asks to see him every single day. The noblewoman comments in amusement that Karen won't get off her back, constantly begging to pay another visit to his mansion. The older sister remembers how the youngest practically lived on the armored warrior's lap, totally glued to him. She says that even getting scolded and feeling pain, the girl refused to leave the hero's side during the rescue. Marie breaks into a gentle smile, commenting that the masked man really does have a vibe that draws people in naturally. With flushed cheeks, the aristocrat confesses he is the most wonderful person she has ever met, to the point of leaving her speechless. The passionate declaration catches the nun off guard, but the redhead swears she'll completely understand when they meet again. Changing the subject, the sister gets curious and asks if the Duke handed over a massive reward to the adventurer. She begs her friend to spill the details of the gift, just to use it as a good benchmark. The girl explains the church still hasn't decided how to show their thanks and is terrified of offering something rude or inappropriate. Libya agrees to tell, but demands absolute secrecy, threatening to expose the nun's real personality if the gossip leaks. The noblewoman leans in carefully, apologizing for needing to whisper such confidential intel. In a low voice, she reveals that her father handed over a huge luxury estate to the guy. On top of that, the family offered an absurdly high financial payout. Lastly, the warrior also received the ducal house's valuable official seal of support. Hearing the absurd list of gifts, the nun is totally baffled and asks if that was really it. thinking the reward was small, Marie argues that a mansion and cash don't cover the miracle of the elixir and the youngest life. Lippia waves her hands in panic, agreeing with her friend's outrage, but warning there was no other way. The nun blinks in confusion, not understanding why the nation's richest family didn't give a better present. The noblewoman explains that the MC didn't just avoid asking for anything, but firmly refused to accept what was offered. Completely shocked, Marie claims that has crossed the line into being a joke, doubting that someone so detached actually exists. The redhead keeps a dead serious expression, proving there isn't a drop of exaggeration in her story. She reminds the nun that she warned her from the start about the warrior being the most fantastic person in the world. The aristocrat reveals that even the powerful Duke of Aldia admitted he couldn't hold a candle to the adventurer's greatness. Blown away, the silver-haired woman can barely believe such an influential man said something like that. Libya continues, explaining her father has been racking his brain coming up with strategies just to hold a conversation with the guy. The noblewoman notes that the patriarch always loses his smile when the hero's name is dropped, proving the impact he made. With that info, Marie quickly realizes the masked man is a true monster if he can intimidate a duke. The nun breaks into an excited smile, amazed that her little sisters were saved by someone so surreal. The older sister agrees proudly, stating that only a man capable of outshining the nobles could pull off a feat like that. Taking advantage of the trusting vibe, the nun asks if her friend really believes the hero is part of the Vertar faction. Gazing at the peaceful garden, the aristocrat reveals she got strict orders from her father never to make an enemy of the warrior. Getting back to the point, Lippia explains that exposing the secret identity of a Vertar agent would only stir up even more diplomatic trouble. Marie agrees, noting the hero already wields massive authority and can get whatever he wants without their help. The aristocrat recalls the meeting, mentioning the warrior seemed much happier getting cash than the family's seal. The nun gets totally confused, thinking that humble attitude makes zero sense for someone in his position. Money is something common that any worker can earn with effort. Unlike the prestige of a ducal house, the official seal represents a permanent guarantee of political backing from the wealthiest family, something the whole world envies. Marie assumes that since he already has the emperor himself backing him in Vertar, the MC prefers something practical, like coins. Completely delusional, the redhead sighs, saying he only wanted the money so he could help even more people in need. The noblewoman deduces someone with legendary gear of that level would never need financial help for himself. Convinced, Marie decides the church will focus on cash until she's interrupted by Lippia stating the warrior is her type. Caught off guard by the tease, the nun stammers in confusion and mentions her little sister said the exact same thing. The aristocrat gives an amused giggle, praising Nina's sharp intuition for picking up on her older sister's feelings. Trying to turn the tables, the nun fires back that the noblewoman has no room to talk since she is practically radiating infatuation for the adventurer. Face completely red, the redhead loses her cool on the spot and begs her friend to drop the joke. Meanwhile, in another area, Karen walks happily beside Nina, celebrating that she'll finally reunite with her savior. The young nun agrees, thinking it's absurd they hadn't been able to find a man wearing such flashy armor. Gripping the broom tight, Nina confesses she was terrified he got punished for spending the legendary elixir. The ducal youngest confidently points her finger, guaranteeing the hero would scold her for thinking that way. Karen recalls the warrior's words, where he asked her to focus on enjoying her newfound freedom instead of worrying. Moved by the revelation, the sister presses her hands together in prayer and thanks her friend for sharing such comforting advice. The redhead continues, sharing that the adventurer claimed to have zero regrets over his choices, even risking reprimand. She theorizes the guy must have so many achievements in the military faction that the organization would never have the guts to toss him aside. Leaning on the broom handle, the nun nods, agreeing that this rebel attitude fits him perfectly. The two girls sit on the bench to rest, concluding the savior never backs down when he believes he's on the right path. Curious about the future, Nina asks how long the warrior plans to stay within the city limits. The youngest explains he still has pending missions, since he even turned down a dinner invite at the Duke's mansion. Karen pictures the hero patrolling the dark alleys at night, where his black armor would serve as perfect camouflage. Charmed by the image of a silent protector, the platinum-haired young woman sighs with rosy cheeks. Noticing her friend's obvious crush, the redhead breaks into a teasing smile and promises to share some valuable intel. The nun pays attention and Karen reveals the adventurer frequently hits up a specific inn for simple meals. Hearing the mention of lunchtime, Nina sees the perfect window and jumps up all at once. Karen quickly spots her friend's intention and indignantly asks if she seriously plans on heading there right now. Trying to play it cool, the nun swears she wouldn't do that before thanking the hero properly. But the girl quickly takes off sprinting toward the city, totally ignoring her own excuse. Alone on the bench, the ducal youngest is left speechless, confirming she got left in the dust. Meanwhile, the MC strolls casually through Aldia's busy streets wearing his imposing black armor. Kai finally arrives at the storefront of the pub where he usually grabs his daily meals. What he doesn't know is that moments prior, Mina was already interrogating the owner about the warrior's schedule. As soon as he steps into the establishment, the adventurer notices a weird commotion and stops dead in his tracks. Cornered at the counter, the clerk begs for mercy as he caves to the pressure of the interrogation. In a total panic, the man ends up confessing the masked man usually shows up right at that time. Watching the scene from afar, Kai feels awkward noticing the shopkeeper is getting squeezed just because he wanted to get lunch. Without missing a beat, the nun keeps up her investigation and demands to know the hero's favorite spot in the dining room. Since the owner hesitates, the young woman keeps a firm stance and orders him to spill the info right away. Completely defeated, the clerk raises a finger and points to one of the tables in the restaurant. The sister seizes the opening and questions what the adventurer's usual order is, wanting to know his latest dish. Trembling, the man points to the item on the menu, and the young woman immediately orders the exact same meal. Seeing the situation unfold, the MC feels bad noticing the desperate pitch the pub owner's voice has reached. Inside the armor, he thinks about backing out, but soon decides it would be too cruel to abandon the shopkeeper who always treats him well. Mustering his courage, the hero holds the door tight to avoid turning back. He decides to go in for real, hoping another customer's arrival will help cool things down in the room. However, taking a closer look, the adventurer confirms the cleric is still suffering at the holy duo's hands. The man tries to ask for a moment of patience while dealing with the pressure from both nuns at the same time. Wanting to avoid trouble, Kai tries to slip by unnoticed toward an isolated table, silently rooting for the shopkeeper. He settles into the corner, feeling the weight of having forced himself to walk into the establishment. The young man decides to pretend he isn't seeing anything, hoping not to get dragged into that mess. With that, silence takes over the place, and the MC notices the movement stopping abruptly behind his back. Completely tense, the masked man wonders why the interrogation stopped right now. The two nuns finally focus on the imposing figure in the corner and assume a defensive stance awaiting orders. Noticing fast footsteps heading his way, the adventurer internally panics, wondering who's approaching. The pub owner uses the warrior's body as a shield, while Kai internally laments that his attempt to help turned into a problem. Relieved, the shopkeeper whispers a thank you and promises to go all out on the hero's dish to repay the protection. Taken by surprise, the adventurer tries to stammer something to clear up the misunderstanding with the religious women. Turning his face, he finally takes a good look at the nun who is causing all that commotion. The young woman shows a calm and gentle expression, completely changing her previous aggressive posture. She holds her own necklace with her hands clasped together, showing a peaceful devotion. The golden pendant on the girl's chest shines brightly in the ambient light. With a sweet expression, the religious woman asks if the great masked warrior still remembers her. Kai gets a huge shock upon recognizing Nina, but tries to hide his surprise by praising the girl's good condition. Beaming, the nun enthusiastically replies that she is also very happy to see her savior doing well. Next, the young woman takes the blame for the mess, asking the adventurer not to punish the shopkeeper for the earlier interrogation. To ensure everything is okay, the two nuns bow in a formal apology for the chaos in the restaurant. The pub owner rushes to calm the situation, thanking them for their generosity and assuring them there is nothing to worry about. With the mood lighter, the MC comments that he didn't recognize her right away because of her new clothes and healthy appearance. Excited by the comment, Nina does a little twirl to show off the impeccable church uniform and asks if it looks good on her. The young man agrees, stating that the sacred outfit will suit her even better when she's older. The nun bashfully thanks him for the compliment, while the hero admits he had no idea about her connection to the church. The young woman keeps her joyful expression, showing how much that casual conversation means to her. Behind her, the guard with her face covered by a visor subtly moves to intervene. The armored woman just watches the interaction in silence, unable to hide her presence. Remembering the tragic state the girl was in during captivity, Kai takes the opportunity to ask how her eyesight is now. Nina gets quite close to the masked man, assuring him that she can see perfectly thanks to the miracle he performed. To test it, the adventurer holds up his fingers in sequence, and the nun guesses all the numbers without the slightest difficulty. Underneath his helmet, the MC is relieved to confirm that the girl is completely healthy. Emotional, the young woman reveals that she now lives her days with great joy, as she spent years unable to see her own family's faces. Feeling the weight of the statement, the warrior waves his hand, asking her not to bring up such sad topics at the moment. He instructs the girl to hold her head high and focus only on enjoying life, explaining that this was the purpose of the elixir. With shining eyes, Nina immediately agrees and promises to do her best from then on. The conversation is interrupted by the return of the pub owner, who brings the hot orders in his hands. The man places the plate in front of the nun, who is surprised by the huge amount of food served there. Noticing the size of the meal, the warrior asks if the young woman ordered the large portion on purpose. He warns her that this size is meant for adults, but the girl explains she wanted to eat exactly the same thing as him. Completely serene, the religious girl confesses that this was exactly the reason she decided to visit the restaurant. Surprised, the masked man understands the girl's admiration and finds it curious how people get these sudden cravings. Even so, he lets her know that if she can't finish it, he and the guard can help with the rest of the food. Grateful for the kindness, the nun and her protector agree with the adventurer's suggestion. Next, Kai asks them not to wait for his plate and to start eating right away. He argues that it would be a waste to let the meal get cold, since they probably have a time limit outside the temple. Following his advice, the two clasp their hands in a brief prayer of thanks for the food. As soon as they finish the prayer, the duo begins to elegantly savor the hot dish. The young woman is amazed by the flavor and praises the meal, being quickly backed up by her personal guard. Proud of his recommendation, the adventurer cheerfully agrees, reinforcing that the food there is always excellent. But the peace is short-lived, as the shopkeeper slams a mug of drink hard on the table, annoyed with the hero's attitude. Not understanding the aggression, the young man asks for the reason, and the man grumbles that he almost passed out from the scare because of him. Sweating cold, the MC thinks that the nun had taken the blame for the interrogation, not him. Noticing the closeness between the two, Nina comments that the adventurer and the establishment owner seem to be very tight. The shopkeeper excitedly agrees about their friendship, while Kai thinks he would have kept his distance if he knew about the man's real connections. Right after, the server realizes his own informal tone and quickly corrects himself, panicking for having spoken so casually. The MC notices the slip-up immediately, pointing out that the pub owner just used very laid-back language with the religious girl. At that, Nina's personal guard steps in, asking the masked man to ignore the shopkeeper's slip since the nun wasn't bothered by it. Completely chill, the young woman states she would love it if everyone spoke more casually with her, just like the hero does. The server rejects the idea right away, begging to be spared from such a lack of manners towards such an important figure. Finding the situation funny, Kai confesses it's hilarious to see the man acting so tense, but is soon called a weirdo by him. While the argument goes on, the nun continues to calmly enjoy her meal. However, she suddenly pauses her meal and apologizes for changing the subject so out of nowhere. With the masked man's attention on her, the girl reveals she has an important question to ask. She explains that her free time outside the church grounds is quite limited. Because of this, the religious girl suggests they set a specific date so she can visit him and properly thank him for the rescue. The adventurer goes completely silent, processing the formal invitation he just received from the young woman. Totally caught off guard, the young man reacts with shock, not understanding how the situation got to this point. Noticing the tense mood, the shopkeeper decides to step away, leaving Kai desperate, thinking he would need to visit the Grand Cathedral. The nun reassures the hero right away, guaranteeing that she and her companions would be the ones going to his estate to say thanks. The warrior realizes that the church already knows where his safe hideout is, prompting the young woman to offer an apology. In his thoughts, the MC wonders how they found out the mansion's location so fast, since he had just gotten the place recently. Hiding his worry, the masked man claims to just be impressed and asks that the visit be on his day off so it doesn't get in the way. The religious girl suggests next Sunday at noon, which is readily accepted by the guy, who immediately asks who will be part of the group. Nina starts listing the guests, first mentioning the mandatory presence of her father and her mother. Next, she includes her older sister and confirms her own presence at the event. To wrap up the list, the young woman assumes that several elite church guards will also be accompanying the family. Shaken by the grand scale of the group, the adventurer realizes the power level of the girl's family and internally bemoans his luck. Trying to do damage control, the hero asks if he can choose who actually gets to enter the property, leaving the nun confused. Surprised by the unusual request, the girl hesitates, and the masked man makes it clear he'd rather her parents not show up for the visit. He justifies the demand by explaining that he hates formal meetings and wants to avoid drawing unnecessary attention to his hideout. Eavesdropping from afar, the pub owner finds it ironic that the guy talks about not drawing attention while wearing a giant black armor. Noticing the shopkeeper's silent judgment, Kai mentally asks the man to stop nitpicking his choices. Arguing his case, the adventurer states he would rather see her parents prioritizing their work, fearing that something bad might happen. He adds that the young woman herself is enough to say thanks, openly confessing that he is absolutely terrified of high-ranking figures. The protective guard joins the conversation, suggesting that the warrior doesn't trust the older sister's presence, which Nina desperately denies. Satisfied with the resolution, the armored woman drops the subject and warns that she will leave the task of notifying the church superiors in the hero's hands. The woman reveals that this restriction really helps out the security logistics, admitting that this was her true intention from the start. Relieved by how the negotiation went, the MC internally celebrates the fact that he managed to solve the problem without any major misunderstandings. With everything settled, the two religious women go back to focusing on their food and continue savoring the dish in silence. After finishing the entire meal, the nun gets the hero's attention by calling him by his combatant title. The two stand up together and announce their departure, stating they are looking forward to meeting him again on the weekend. Keeping a chill posture, the guy waves his hand and says goodbye to the girls as they walk out. The establishment's door closes softly, marking the definitive exit of the holy duo. As soon as the place empties out, the warrior slumps over the table and lets out a long sigh of complete mental exhaustion. The pub owner approaches, handing over the hero's lunch and sarcastically asks if he's the one who should really be tired. Looking at the hearty plates, Kai argues that dealing with the church elite would exhaust anyone, but the shopkeeper claps back, reminding him of his lack of formality. Without the energy to argue, the adventurer gives up on the fight and proposes a silent agreement that they both suffered a lot that afternoon. The server confesses he already suspected the masked man's level, but never imagined he would go toe-to-toe with the Holy Church. Hiding his weakness, the MC just wishes the lie were true, while the man asks him to drop the humble act. Changing the subject, Kai praises the fact that the shopkeeper keeps treating him the same way, arguing that acting naturally is much better for everyone. Regaining his posture a bit, the hero admits that this casual attitude brings a huge relief to his stressful routine. The pub owner agrees, but demands not to be sued for insulting a superior in the future, which the warrior guarantees would never happen. Thinking about the recent interaction, the adventurer recalls the intimidating presence of the armored woman, confirming the fame of the church's elite. Eating his meal, the guy acknowledges that the job requires that level of skill and regrets not getting that intel sooner. The server goes back to complaining about the lack of a heads-up regarding the hero's connections, recalling the sheer panic he felt during the interrogation. The MC tries to justify that the religious women went easy on the demands, which leaves the man totally confused by his logic. Kai explains that the guard just did her duty of protecting the nun's free time, opting for a firm dialogue instead of throwing her authority around. He concludes that the woman's imposing attitude is the purest way of showing loyalty and protection to the founder's descendant. Scratching the back of his neck, the warrior feels empathy for the guard, realizing she must be under a lot of pressure being stuck between the church and Nina's wishes. The shopkeeper agrees with the thought and suggests that the masked man perfectly understands that feeling since he serves the empire's leaders directly. Wiping the counter, the man recalls that the adventurer himself had shown concern for his public image during the commotion. Totally awkward, Kai laughs nervously and admits he has no clue how those politics work, just throwing random words out there. Faced with the humble answer, the shopkeeper deduces that the guy is only unaware of those rules because he holds such a high position that he doesn't need to care about them. Shocked by his own deduction, the server's eyes widen, asking if the customer has more authority than the big shots of the Holy Church. Quickly, the MC waves his hands denying everything, assuring him that he is so low on the totem pole that he doesn't even understand that world. Tired of the hero's supposed lies, the pub owner ends the chat while Kai realizes that the misunderstanding just skyrocketed. Elsewhere, the royal carriage drives away from the area, with the religious girl celebrating the fact that she managed to eat the same dish as her savior for lunch. Inside the vehicle, the guard takes advantage of the alone time to question the young woman's honest opinion about the warrior's skills and posture. With a serene smile, the nun replies that she prefers to focus on the guy's inside, rather than his unquestionable brute strength. The armored woman apologizes for her tactical view, explaining that she spent the entire meal on high alert and couldn't relax. Startled by the revelation, the founder's descendant jumps a little and asks where that constant observation was coming from. The protector explains that the adventurer was testing her readiness during lunch, since meals are the moments of greatest vulnerability. She reinforces the need for this strict posture, recalling that the military team already carries the shame of having allowed the young woman's kidnapping in the past. The military woman admits it's unforgivable that they never detected the hero's presence in the forest, swearing to never let her guard down again in any situation. Nina considers that maybe the masked man has a weak presence, but quickly dismisses the idea and thanks her personal security for her unwavering dedication. Developing her conspiracy theory, the guard concludes that the warrior's timing was way too perfect and that he must have planned the whole mess at the pub. With her eyes shining behind the visor, the woman brings up the dark hypothesis that the fake spy has an infinitely superior intelligence network. The protective guard also reckons the adventurer has a knack for reading situations and warns that she will report the incident to the girl's father. Bummed out by the woman's strict attitude, Nina asks if she is talking specifically about the thank you request. The escort confirms the suspicion, arguing that someone in that privileged position would never waste the chance to build ties with the family. She explains that calling in a direct favor from the parents would be the perfect move, finding his excuse of not wanting to draw attention very sketchy. Hearing the reasoning, the young nun grasps the tactical logic and concludes that that humble excuse was just a front. The guard points out that people usually avoid political big shots, but the adventurer's natural interaction totally contradicts that standard behavior. Remembering the rumors about him belonging to the Virchar organization, the protector deduces that dealing with nobles must be something extremely everyday for the guy. Faced with this mystery, the two sit in complete silence on the vehicle's seat, deep in theories about the hero's true intentions. Breaking the tense vibe, the escort brings up the grim hypothesis that a massive hidden problem might be brewing in the shadows of the cathedral. With that, she notes that the MC's refusal to host the girl's parents wasn't stated for a trivial reason. Fearing for the church's safety, the guard asks for immediate permission to speed up the carriage and consult the family leader without wasting any more time. Totally agreeing with the level of urgency brought on by the situation, the founder's descendant authorizes the change of pace without a second thought. Right after the order is passed along, the coachman cracks his whip in the air to speed up the horses down the street. The imposing vehicle aggressively pushes through the city, leaving its former tranquility behind at high speed. The destination of this hurried race is the grand religious mansion that serves as the base of operations for the powerful family. Once inside the facilities, Nina talks openly with her older sister, who comments in surprise about the adventurer's exclusive invite. Finding the quirky demand funny, the woman jokes saying that the famous hero has great taste in picking company. However, the youngest quickly notices her relative's physical state, seeing that both her voice and her legs are trembling non-stop on the couch. Totally embarrassed by being called out, the sister tries to justify herself by saying she wasn't mentally prepared to be the only adult at the meeting. With a serene smile on her face, the nun calms the woman down, promising that despite his monstrous reputation, the warrior is a wonderful person. Still insecure about the weight of the rumors, the relative hesitantly asks if the guy is at least usually generous in theory. Displaying unshakable trust in her savior, the founder's descendant compares the MC's kindness to her own sister's generosity. Relieved by the sincere compliment, the woman suddenly perks up and suggests that acting laid back will be the best approach for the meeting. But the relief doesn't last long, as the relative backs out of the idea in a panic, accusing the youngest of trying to get her in deep trouble by suggesting such a lack of formality. She nervously argues that keeping a polite posture gives a much better impression and secures the respect of the Empire's powerful admirers. Completely ignoring the political worry, Nina sweetly confesses that she much prefers her sister's true stripped-down version. Touched by the maturity of the advice, the woman relaxes her tense posture on the couch and promises to take those sweet words to heart for life. Changing the subject, the relative gets back to the main focus of the conversation and praises out loud the masked warrior's unbelievable skills. Walking toward the window, she is impressed by the fact that the hero was the first one to detect the suspicious movements of a new enemy cult. Curious about the efficiency of that spy network, the sister quickly deduces that it's much safer to keep a distance from his dangerous sources. The woman sternly warns that trying to look into the Imperial agent's methods could put the entire church on the faction's enemies list. Adding to the theory, she points out that the tragic scenario would end with the masked man cutting ties permanently because he'd consider the contact risky. Reinforcing the collective fear that dominates the nobles, the relative admits that the MC carries the reputation of a ruthless monster. Drowning in her own paranoia, the woman even brilliantly considers that the adventurer might be secretly eavesdropping on their confidential conversation. Trying to bring her family member back to reality, the nun points out the temple's heavy defenses and guarantees that such spying would be impossible. Just then, their blood runs cold as they hear heavy footsteps echoing right from the ceiling of the protected room. Terrified by the scary noise, the young religious girl gets her relative's attention with her voice totally trembling with fear. Sweating cold from desperation, the older sister makes up the lame excuse that it must just be an animal running across the sacred roof. Internally, Nina ignores the desperate excuse and feels a deep gratitude, blindly believing that the fake spy is secretly watching over her safety. Outside the impenetrable door, the sister hysterically tries to convince herself that the soldiers block any attempt at a physical break-in. Time moves forward with no more mysterious interruptions, and the promised Sunday for the big event finally arrives. At the busy tavern, the shopkeeper serves the hero in his civilian form and praises his guts for strolling around casually just a short time before the nerve-wracking meeting. On that fateful day, the top figures who lead the church's military force would be walking into the highly anticipated formal thank you. Sitting at the bar, Kai finds emotional comfort in remembering that his direct order prevented the terrifying attendance of Nina's parents. Keeping his confidence steady, the guy truly believes he has already memorized all the meeting's lines to get the red tape over with quickly. The only real pending issue that still haunts the adventurer's peace is needing to make first-time contact with the dreaded older sister. As a tactical precaution, the young man schemes up the cowardly plan to dump any complex subject right onto the young religious girl's lap. Satisfied with his own escape route, the MC approves the shameful strategy without showing any guilty conscience. Drinking comfortably at the wooden counter, the guy admits he tucked himself away in the bar exactly to clear his troubled mind before the formal commitment. Taking advantage of his time off work, he tells the server that the local duke assigned a specialized butler to handle his mansion's chores. Lamenting the loneliness of domestic service, the hero feels an immense pity for the excessive pressure the employee carries on his shoulders every single day. Finishing off all the liquid, the adventurer rests the large glass cup on the counter with a slow movement. Totally bummed out by other people's reactions, the young man figures that the bar owner stopped having empathy after getting a brutal scolding from Nina's guard. Taking a good look at the flow in the restaurant, the MC finally notices the exaggerated buzz from the crowd around him. The hall packed with starving customers and the doubled number of staff prove the absurd success the establishment has achieved. Showing immense pride in his revenue, the merchant reveals that all that phenomenal growth happened thanks to the hero's accidental intervention. He explains that the striking presence of the healed religious girl in the pub generated massive hype throughout the entire city in record time. While the man praises the girl's constant outings, Kai silently agrees, noticing that the young woman's beauty catches eyes from all over the empire. Riding the wave of the conversation about the church, the shopkeeper remembers a valuable piece of info and grabs the distracted guy's attention. Completely lowering his voice for safety, the merchant asks if the adventurer has heard about the dangerous new faction challenging the Catholic power. The server confidently speculates that the fake spy set up that entire power base in anticipation of the colossal conflict that is about to blow up. Impressed with how these crucial details are circulating on the street, the young man asks about the source of the scandalous gossip involving the high brass of the faith. The shopkeeper confirms that civilians are talking about the enemy cult spreading terrible lies with the main goal of destroying Nina's family's influence. Sighing in frustration at more pointless political drama, the MC laments the chaotic burden of those who take on extreme positions of control. Used to the elite's maneuvers, the merchant interprets the fake exhaustion as pure prior knowledge and says it's impossible to hide anything from the empire. Totally annoyed by the guy's denials, the establishment owner claims that the adventurer fakes ignorance just to protect his own government identity. Giving up on fighting a war against his friend's paranoias, Kai just asks if the Holy Church can neutralize the problem before it gets worse. With a glass in his nimble hands, the shopkeeper shows strong concern and admits the situation looks like a total mess due to the speed of the sect's advance. Unfazed by wars that don't affect his own routine escape, the MC reassures the man, guaranteeing that the temple has enough military resources. Bothered by this laid-back confidence in someone else's victory, the merchant accusingly implies that the calmness comes from the strings the hero has already pulled behind the scenes. The shopkeeper shoots a narrow, deadly glare of pure disbelief at his lying customer, plunging the conversation at the counter into complete awkwardness. Accepting the undeniable weight of moral defeat against his friend, the adventurer drops his guard and thanks him for the valuable rundown of the city's dangers. With the intel locked in his mind, the guy internally plans to bring up the tricky subject during the young religious girl's visit. Fully backing the investigation plan, the merchant concludes that the top holy leaders will easily spill the beans to a national security rep. As the warrior leaves the peaceful spot, the pub owner shamelessly demands a ridiculous fee for the intel provided in the chat. Pleased with Nina's presence in the pub, the server lets him know that the hero's drinks will be on the house for a good while. Kinda surprised, the warrior asks if he's sure about that, while the merchant just tells the guy not to be shy and to come back often. Relieved by the unexpected savings, the MC profusely thanks him for the financial help. Wearing his heavy black armor, Kai walks toward the establishment's exit, hearing that good deeds always bring rewards. Once outside on the street, the adventurer takes a deep breath and feels his stomach completely full and satisfied after the meal. Walking beside him, the housekeeper questions if it's really necessary to wear that heavy gear for the meeting with the religious figures. Always cautious, the masked man justifies that he prefers to play it safe in case some dangerous plot twist ends up happening. Keeping pace with the hero, the employee argues he would fight much better using only his bare hands in actual combat. She also confesses that the warrior's intimidating posture has been giving her a bit of a scare lately. Shocked by this sudden assessment, the guy immediately wants to know where the woman got that ridiculous idea. Point blank, the housekeeper reveals she heard it straight from the Duke, pointing out that this info is strictly confidential. Totally tense from those words, the adventurer feels a giant wave of relief for having decided to keep the armored suit protecting his body. Trying to shift the focus from the scary conversation, Kai hands over the responsibility of guiding Nina and her sister around the place straight to the employee. With that, the woman suggests using the office or the drawing room, options the MC accepts without any issue. Determined to get the red tape over with quickly, the young man chooses the office and the housekeeper readily agrees to follow the order. Totally intimidated by the responsibilities, the young man envies the calm and composure with which nobles handle this routine. Keeping focus on the planning, the housekeeper deduces that the guards will also enter the mansion and asks for guidance on how to handle them. Thinking fast, the masked man suggests the security wait outside the office to avoid those staring eyes during the meeting. Walking up the stairs of the place, the employee approves the idea and suggests letting the military guys roam freely around the property so they don't get bored. Turning her head to check the hero's reaction, she asks if he is really sure about this total free reign. The adventurer gets confused, wanting to know if there's any issue with that, but the woman assures him it's all good if he agrees with the call. Observing the housekeeper's behavior, the guy notices her agitation and internally hopes that isn't a terrible sign for the future. Changing the subject completely, he talks about sharing the tasty sweets that Karen had brought when she delivered the family seal. Caught off guard by the sudden tone shift, the employee gets completely confused, not understanding her boss's reasoning. Stuttering nervously at the question, she tries to process if there's any hidden meaning in that inquiry about dessert. Regaining a bit of posture, the woman looks away and hesitantly answers that she sees no problem with the idea. The MC agrees to stick to the plan and casually asks the price of the box so he can buy it again, hearing that it costs around 50,000 coins. Upon hearing the absurd price, the warrior mentally short-circuits, wondering how a simple sweet can cost so much money. Riding the wave, he asks the value of the jeweled ring he received, and the woman estimates a price in the millions. Once the shock passes, the guy tries to play it cool, but the housekeeper misreads his reaction and quickly offers to complain to the Duke about the reward being way too low. Waving his hands desperately, Kai denies any dissatisfaction and admits that just the concept of giving something so expensive already makes his head hurt. Worried about his own image, he asks if he comes off as a greedy person, while the woman assures him she just follows the Duke's strict orders. Standing at the mansion's entrance, the hero laments all this excessive worry, and the employee explains that this is just a matter of honor for the nobility. Trying to be nice, the masked man surprises the housekeeper by asking directly if there's anything she would like to get. He justifies it by saying he feels terrible just receiving favors all the time and wants to pay back her excellent service in some way. With a professional stance, the woman declines the offer, stating she already receives a more than fair pay from the family leader. Leaning forward, the MC insists she shouldn't be so rigid and begs to know what her tastes are. Pressured by her boss's stubborn kindness, the employee caves a bit and shyly confesses she loves eating sweets. Excited by the simple answer, the young man promises to bring a massive amount of goodies at the next opportunity. Pointing inside the house, Kai lets her know he has chores in the office and tells the woman to stick to the plan as soon as the guests arrive. Wasting no time, the adventurer turns his back and walks down the hallway, leaving the housekeeper alone on the spot. Watching the warrior walk away, the employee puts on an extremely serious face and decides she needs to report the events to the Duke. Analyzing the hero's lines, she figures that his casual and direct slang confirms the suspicions of him being an agent for the Empire's secret organization. Moments later, the woman opens the mansion's grand doors, welcoming the illustrious religious guests with total courtesy. The two important church figures step into the room accompanied by heavily armed entourage right behind them. The noblewomen march down the residence's elegant hallways, keeping a dignified posture as they are escorted. The housekeeper takes the lead of the group, guiding the religious women straight to the agreed spot. Reaching the destination, the employee turns the door handle to accommodate the high brass members. Once inside the room, Hina's personal guard recognizes the housekeeper and acts surprised that she is still working there. The house employee explains she thought she would get fired with the mansion's transfer, but the warrior decided to keep her position. Curious, the military woman questions his consideration, while the housekeeper states the boss could have easily hired someone way more capable. Analyzing the situation, the guard deduces that the hero saw a high level of competence in the woman, even without ever testing her skills directly. With a focused look, the nun's protector reinforces the weight of the adventurer's name in that administrative call. Upon hearing the visitor's tactical reasoning, the employee lowers her eyes, fully absorbing the responsibility of serving a monster of that tier. Giving up on finding logic in the masked man's actions, the housekeeper drops the subject, realizing they would be running in circles forever. The military woman points out that the hero is extremely mysterious and recalls that the church forbade any kind of background check on him. The guard comments on the tension it must be to work for someone so feared that the Duke bows to him and the property has 0 soldiers on watch. Confirming the visitor's suspicions, the housekeeper shares that the hero himself dismissed the security, claiming the place would get too stuffy. The employee recalls the guy's totally laid-back vibe when getting that order, which leaves the armored military woman confused. Translating the fake spy's words into war lingo, the guard concludes that this was an open challenge for any enemy to try and break in. Agreeing with the absurdity, the housekeeper testifies that being on the property under his direct protection is the safest spot in the world. Joking about the pressure of the job, the military woman asks to confirm the orders that they can roam freely while the noble women's meeting happens. Bowing formally, the employee guarantees those were the exact instructions passed down by her lord. Intrigued by the tactical freedom of that call, the guard asks the housekeeper's honest opinion since she lives with the hero daily. Afraid of saying too much, the woman warns she won't take responsibility for her words, and the military woman agrees to listen to it strictly as a theory. Ruling out the obvious, the house employee confesses she doesn't believe the guy freed up the place just so the soldiers could rest. Upon hearing the analytical perspective, the guard clasps her hands tensely, knowing the warrior's intentions always hide secrets. The housekeeper reinforces that the troops' main role is to protect Nina and that the spy would never order them to ditch that vital duty. Going deeper into military logic, she explains that locking the escort in a single room would totally limit the response time in an emergency. Processing the genius intel, the military woman reaches the conclusion that the free reign order actually demanded the squad to act on their own and with peak tactical judgment. Reflecting on her own weakness in the face of the adventurer's strength, the protector regrets realizing the masked hero doesn't need their backup for anything. Trying to soften the blow to the other's pride, the employee patiently explains that the guy's lone wolf attitude has nothing to do with the lack of trust. She suggests that the master's intentions are to force the religious women to face harsh reality alone, since he won't be there to save them all the time. The housekeeper concludes that the escort will need to develop this independent mindset if they want to keep protecting the holy girl's smiles in the future. After offering her complex theory, the employee thanks her for listening, while the guard bows her head, sending her thing straight to the fake spy. Sitting on the couch, the MC doesn't get the guests' tense reaction to his simple request for them to make themselves at home. The two religious women stare at the masked man in complete silence, making the situation weirder and weirder. The vibe in the office room gets super heavy as the trio keeps sizing each other up without saying a word. Breaking the awkward silence, the older nun asks permission to ask just one question about his behavior. Totally lost by the sudden formality, the adventurer has no clue how he should act from then on. Trying to keep the master strategist pose, he just agrees with the woman without being sure what he's validating. Internally, the guy panics, wanting Nina's chaperone to explain better instead of just confirming things. Next to her companion, the white-haired religious girl shrugs, visibly nervous from the room's tension. With zero experience in noble political games, the hero mentally begs for any kind of help to bail from there. Spotting the disguised confusion, the elegant woman clears up that there was a misunderstanding and she isn't trying to read his plans. Jumping on the cue, the warrior reinforces that he was totally literal when he asked them to relax, since they hadn't even reached the main topic yet. With that, the older nun squeezes Nina's hand and warns that keeping up that act is going to end up hurting the girl's pride. Catching the exchange of looks between the two, Kai panics, thinking the friendly vibe is going to crash down for good. Sticking to the mysterious persona, he sighs and comments that pride issues really tend to pop up in these situations. Hearing this answer, the mysterious woman drops the stiff posture and lets out a relieved laugh for having won the bet about the disguise. The MC freezes entirely, trying to process the drastic change in the conversation's flow. Taking the sacred veil off her head, Lippia reveals her true identity, leaving the guy shocked by the transformation. With a confident smile, the noblewoman ditches the aura of devotion and strikes a pose oozing elegance and power. Fixing her hair, the woman accepts the host's suggestion and decides to fully chill out during the meeting. Checking out her laid-back face, the fake spy figures, that's the real personality behind the religious front. Libya tries to bring focus back to the meeting to deliver the formal thanks, but ends up being suddenly interrupted. Desperate to stall any talk about extravagant rewards, the masked man says he needs to discuss another issue first. Surprised by the interruption, Nina widens her eyes, curious to know what the warrior's super urgent topic could be. Straight to the point, he brings up the rumors about the new enigmatic cult that picked a direct fight with the Holy Church. Casually, the guy just asks if the two of them are handling all this street drama well. Realizing the heavy subject, the adventurer asks if it's okay to flip the meeting agenda around. Touched by the gesture, the young nun profusely thanks him for the chance to jump straight into debating her institution's crisis. The MC blinks in confusion, not getting why he's receiving so much gratitude for just asking a simple political question. Analyzing the hero's surgical precision and hitting the exact sore spot, Karen's sister wonders how deep his strategic vision goes. With an expression of pure determination, Nina leans forward and states she totally trusts the warrior's wisdom to guide them. Taking the floor again, Lippia guarantees the faction has prepared enough measures to handle any foreseeable threat from the enemy cult. She admits the lack of solid intel and reveals the plan to lure the heretics into a trap before they get stronger. Sweating cold beneath his armor, the MC asks himself how a throwaway conversation turned into a complex war meeting. Nina explains the institution leaked fake data, claiming the entire main family would be out of the Grand Cathedral that day. The girl highlights the massive scale of the lie, since a total absence event for these leaders has never happened in all of religious history. The masked man nods, getting that the misinformation created the perfect bait to force an immediate attack from the criminals. The young nun looks down with a face loaded with worry for the fate of the people involved in the trap. Confirming the operation's safety, Kai figures the girl's parents are still at the temple under the elite guard's max protection. Trying to chill the heavy mood, he smoothly reassures her that all this mess will get sorted out in the best way possible. The adventurer claims that the troops' extreme level of prep guarantees everyone's survival, even if they just keep watch. Relieved by the legendary spy's tactical confirmation, the two women relax their posture on the couch, feeling a weight lift off their shoulders. The hero adds that bad people always end up paying for their own crimes and asks her to send a thank you to the holy leaders. The elegant noblewoman blinks a few times, processing the simplicity of that supportive message coming from such an intimidating man. Touched by the guy's sincere empathy, the white-haired religious girl feels her heart warm with the encouragement aimed at her family. Not noticing the deep impact of his words, the fake warrior smiles friendly under his helmet and asks them to pass along the message. A respectful and awestruck silence takes over the mansion's office after the MC's brief declaration of support. Far away, in the Grand Cathedral, a knight alerts Nina's parents that their lack of action might end up boosting the enemy's confidence. The religious leader agrees with the military man, confessing the huge guilt he feels for ditching his daily duties to hide. However, the patriarch of the faith stands his ground and warns that the decision to blindly trust the hero's plan won't be changed. Outraged by such submission, the soldier clenches his fist hard, finding it ridiculous to believe in a stranger's future prediction. Taken over by outrage, the knight claims it's impossible for someone to have that ability, let alone a newly arrived black warrior. The military guy confronts his superiors, demanding to know how the fake spy could have gotten access to such a massive volume of intel. Looking at the calmness outside the temple, the soldier declares that the adventurer just spouts generic stuff that sounds like it makes sense. Patrolling the main hallway, he concludes that this whole absolute defense scheme is just a gigantic waste of time. The guard rants to himself in the empty hall, totally sick of waiting for a phantom attack that isn't going to happen. After a whole hour of monotony, the knight tries to talk the leaders into dropping that paranoia and getting back to their regular jobs. 30 more minutes go by, and the military guy starts tapping his foot on the ground, losing the last shreds of patience with the watch. Hitting the 2-hour waiting mark, the nun's parents are still chilling, drinking tea without a care for his anxiety. The soldier grinds his teeth in pure rage, about to snap at the institution boss's borderline ridiculous stubbornness. At that exact moment, the hall doors are thrown wide open by another guard who comes running in, shouting an urgent report. The skeptic knight freezes in his tracks with wide eyes, totally shocked by the frantic interruption in the hall. The panting messenger announces that a furious mob from the new cult is marching toward the cathedral, armed with signs. Keeping his relentless composure, the holy leader hears that the heretics are planning an aggressive riot to take over the building. Without wasting a second, the patriarch orders the first 2 security units to immediately lock down the back exit. Raising his sacred staff, he commands the remaining troops to block the flanks to cut off any escape route for the invaders. With a determined gleam in his eye, the man declares that the church will face the mob head-on and publicly debunk every single accusation. Fired up by the master's unshakable courage, the soldiers salute in unison, stepping up to be witnesses to the clash. Back to the calm of the mansion's office, the MC rubs the back of his neck, trying to find the right words to turn down the favor. Staring at the absurd fortune right in front of him, the masked hero spells out loud and clear that he doesn't need that kind of reward. On the verge of tears, Nina begs the warrior not to turn down the $1 million offer, warning that it would put her family in a terrible position. The adventurer stares at the several boxes overflowing with gold and precious jewels, figuring that accepting that treasure is what would actually get him in trouble. Completely desperate to pay off the debt, the 2 noblewomen bow, begging for the love of God for him to keep the money. Spooked by the important figure's submission, Kai waves his hands frantically, asking them to stop with that extreme attitude. Watching the guy's genuine refusal, the elegant woman gulps, realizing his lack of greed borders on terrifying. With her heart overflowing with admiration, the young nun worships the man who risked his own life to save hers without demanding anything in return. Checking out the luxury boxes, the masked man says it's impossible to accept all that wealth. Choosing carefully, he decides to keep only the sacred seal and a small handful of coins. Internally, the guy panics, confessing that getting too much stuff leaves him completely terrified. Witnessing this absurd refusal, the two noble women are left clueless in the face of the warrior's extreme humility. Trying to change the subject quickly, Kai lets out a light cough and asks if Nina's parents are still planning to visit him. The young nun enthusiastically confirms that the meeting is already set, leaving the adventurer in total shock. Watching his reaction, Lepia finds the sudden nervousness weird and asks if there's any problem with this visit. With that, the fake spy holds up two fingers, letting them know he needs to clear up a few major points. He declares that the small cut of the treasure he picked out already serves as a more than enough thank you. To shut the topic down for good, the hero stresses that he won't take any more favors and waves off the religious leader's visit. The sisters try to argue against the sudden decision, but are quickly cut off by the masked man. The MC gets the need to keep up noble appearances, but insists her parents need to focus on other priorities. Lepia blinks in confusion, trying to figure out what urgent priorities he's talking about. Maintaining the strategist pose, Kai argues that such high-profile figures can't waste time on casual visits. However, behind the armor, he sweats cold, admitting he doesn't have the slightest clue what the holy leader's duties even are. Completely lost, the two women try to decode the true meaning of the guy's cryptic words. Desperate to dodge the unwanted visit, the fake spy suggests the leaders spend their time helping their own city out. He backs up his call to turn down the gold by ensuring the fortune will have a way bigger impact if invested in the streets. The masked man explains that the Holy Church's continuous leveling up brings direct perks to him. Therefore, the protective power of the seal he accepted as a reward will get even stronger as the institution grows. Hearing the warrior's selfless reasoning, the sisters are mind-blown by such nobility of spirit. With a soft smile, Lepia accepts the hero's terms and promises the returned money will be put to great use. Nina's eyes go wide with surprise at how easily her sister caved to that crazy refusal. The noble woman just shrugs, pointing out they need to respect the masked man's wishes, which leaves him extremely relieved. Scanning the situation, Lepia figures the adventurer is putting forward an indirect partnership to better the world. She notes that the warrior seemed way happier with the simple coins because it would allow him to help more people in need. With a glowing smile, the woman wishes she could have that muscle in the church and jokes that he is exactly Karen's type. Caught off guard by the romantic comment, the young nun's face turns totally red with embarrassment. While the girl tries to deal with her older sister's teasing, the MC watches the scene, totally missing the vibe shift. Seizing the distraction, he interrupts the chat, dropping the info that he still has one more important item to hand over. Reaching out his arm, the masked hero hands a small object straight into the religious girl's hands. Holding the item carefully, Nina realizes she just received a golden key. The adventurer confirms and casually explains that the key unlocks the doors to that very mansion. He reasons that he can't make use of all the space by himself, so they are free to come and go whenever they want. The MC mentions that he also handed copies to the Duke's daughters so they could use the spot as a safe meetup point. With rosy cheeks, the young nun stares at the gift, overcome with huge emotion. Overflowing with joy, Nina hugs the warrior's arm, thanking him intensely for the insane level of trust. Watching the scene, Lepia finds that move totally weird for someone so calculating. The noblewoman realizes her little sister must have hidden the fact that she owned a copy of the key to that amazing place. While patting the hyped-up girl's head, Kai takes the chance to drop some direct advice for Lepia. Being called by her fake name, the elegant woman pays attention to the host's words. With a gentle, helmetless smile, the guy asks her to stop holding back, because he vastly prefers this laid-back personality. Hit point blank by the unexpected compliment, Lepia turns completely red, clueless on how to react to the fake spy's charm. Teasing her embarrassed buddy, Nina praises the moment while her sister tells her to zip it. Later on, the two visitors walk through the property's garden, escorted by the mansion's housekeeper. From the main door, the house employee silently watches the luxury carriage pull away from the property. Walking through the halls, she reflects that she'd normally do whatever it takes to avoid working in such a sketchy political environment. However, the housekeeper remembers her new master is someone with enough power to totally dominate the situation. She racks her brain, recalling the time she saw the Duke of Aldia himself completely burned out, trying to deal with the hero's pressure. Stopped in front of the office door, the woman swears to herself she can't make a single mistake serving this tactical monster. After a few soft knocks on the wood, the masked man gives the employee the green light to enter the room. With flawless posture, she announces the guests have safely left, and the adventurer thanks her for the logistical support. Spotting the obvious exhaustion on the MC's face, the housekeeper wonders if the meeting was tenser than expected. The warrior vents that he really needed that meeting to end, while the woman finds it weird he stayed in full armor the whole time. Analyzing the cryptic comment, the employee wishes she were smart enough to decode the fake spy's plots. Changing the subject, Kai mentions he handed out mansion keys, but the housekeeper accepts the order without showing a hint of surprise. She explains she caught on because the nun walked out of the property glowing, testing the key in the lock over and over again. Finding the act adorable, the guy lets out a light laugh, commenting that the girl finally acted her own age. The employee adds that Lipia also made her massive respect for the warrior crystal clear and promised to come back soon. Satisfied with the outcome, the hero flashes a genuine smile, confessing he's super happy with that kind of praise. Internally, the housekeeper doubts it was just sweet talk, since she had never seen the noble act so genuinely before. She assumes the warrior's words must have deeply touched the hearts of the two VIP visitors. Cutting the theory short, the MC quickly waves his hand, swearing she is just imagining things. The employee finds her boss's defensive reaction weird and asks what's up with that sudden suspicious look. Trying to smooth things over, she explains that if the hero can easily manipulate even the ducal family leader. Confused by the statement, the masked man listens as the woman deduces he could control anyone with the same ease. Sweating cold over the unearned fame, the guy silently groans, wishing he had at least a fraction of all that composure. However, the housekeeper points out that this casual reply just proves the total dominance he holds over any situation. She concludes that the adventurer chose to use gentle words with the sisters to soothe their youth and inexperience. In contrast, the woman remembers he acted in a ruthless, sharp way to submit the seasoned Duke of Aldia. Overcome with fear, the housekeeper prays with all her might that this scary personality is never aimed at her. Staring at the rejected treasure tossed in the room, she decides she needs to adapt fast to her master's incomprehensible values. Trembling with nerves, the employee reaches the final conclusion that she is serving an entity entirely beyond human comprehension. As the church carriage pulls away, Nina excitedly asks if her sister heard what the warrior said. Marie asks her to lower her voice, but the young nun remains thrilled, commenting that no man had ever said something like that before. Completely radiant, the girl lets out a light laugh, stating that there is no harm in showing this joy. Watching the scene, the older sister remembers how the youngest trembled with fear before actually meeting the fake spy. She finds it funny to see this same girl now celebrating getting the key to his mansion. Suddenly changing her posture, Marie approaches with a much stricter aura. Without beating around the bush, she holds out her hand, demanding that her sister hand over the key to be kept safe. Desperate not to lose her gift, Nina hugs the object tightly and refuses the demand right away. The older nun insists that this is no time for stubbornness, emphasizing the heavy burden of carrying something entrusted by the dark warrior. Tired of arguing, Marie sighs and warns that the youngest will have to take full responsibility if she ends up losing the item. To justify her concern, she reminds her that the girl tends to be quite absent-minded on a daily basis. Struck by the truth, the young girl lowers her head, feeling the weight of that undeniable fact. Holding her sister's hands, Marie agrees that losing the key of such a dangerous man would be no laughing matter. Thinking more calmly, the nun confesses how scary the masked man is, since he saw right through her polite facade in an instant. She remembers that their own father had already warned them about the hero's sharp perception, even if deep down she doubted it until now. Marie admits that she would have made a terrible impression on behalf of the church if she hadn't been following the patriarch's direct orders. Trying to cheer up her sister, Nina assures her that her posture was flawless and didn't raise any suspicion. However, the older nun questions the absurd accuracy of the information the hero had about the enemy cult. Completely intrigued, she mentions the bizarre feeling that the warrior knows absolutely everything that happens in that city. Putting the pieces together, the youngest raises the hypothesis that the fake spy is the anonymous person who leaked the data to the institution. Nina reinforces the theory by recalling that the mysterious informant never took off his armor and acted with extreme caution. Supporting the idea, Marie reveals that the holy leader thinks exactly the same, believing that today's meeting was part of the trap. She concludes that the refusal of their parents' visit only proves that the MC foresaw some dangerous event happening at that moment. But the nun soon gets confused, since to know so many internal details, he would have needed to be investigating the city for a long time. At that, the white-haired girl remembers that the adventurer was silently lurking on the day he saved her from the bandits. Dismissing the idea of deep espionage, Marie states that such a busy man wouldn't waste time working in the shadows just for them. If all this investigative effort is real, she wonders what kind of saint he is, regretting not having handed over the family treasure. Knowing her savior well, Nina states with conviction that the warrior simply isn't the type to accept extravagant rewards. Won over by the hero's noble attitude, the older sister sighs in admiration at how amazing he manages to be. The youngest feels her heart race as she imagines the young man's kindness behind that intimidating helmet. Holding her sister's hand affectionately, Marie reinforces the girl's immense luck in being saved by such a wonderful person. The young woman fully agrees, feeling that the impact of that rescue seems to renew itself every day. A short time later, the luxurious carriage finally completes the journey back. The vehicle stops in front of the imposing cathedral, where several guards provide absolute security for the perimeter. Looking out the window, the older nun notices some unusual movement happening near the entrance. Noticing the sudden tension in the air, Mina confesses that she is starting to get scared. Trying to stay calm, Marie pulls the youngest into a protective hug, assuring her that there is no reason to worry. At that moment, one of the church's knights opens the vehicle door to welcome the noble women. Still suspicious of the atmosphere in the courtyard, the woman stares at the soldier, waiting for some report on the situation. Without letting go of her sister, she immediately asks what in the world just happened around there. The soldier reassures everyone, reporting that the heretic's manifestation was perfectly controlled thanks to prior planning. Relieved by the success of the defensive operation and the lack of damage, the two finally relax their posture. Once inside the church's main hall, the religious leader questions why his daughters returned with the gold and the extra keys. The patriarch reprimands his oldest daughter, thinking she failed in her mission to deliver the proper thanks. Keeping her composure, Marie explains that she understands the family's frustration after so much preparation for the meeting. She agrees that the institution should have delivered a flawless financial reward to the savior. However, the nun raises her voice, stating that negotiating with that masked man is an impossible task. Before the Holy Throne, she confesses that the fake spy broke her entire formal facade in a matter of seconds. The woman admits to having been completely outmaneuvered, since it is useless to debate with someone who controls every variable of the situation. The young nun's parents listen to her outburst with great attention and perplexity. Sighing in defeat, the religious leader concludes that he needs to believe this version if his own daughter admits tactical defeat. The girl's mother agrees, recalling that the warrior was already in control of everything even before they arrived at the mansion. Getting back to the main subject, Marie asks if the patriarch still intends to force an approach by sending more gifts. Without hesitation, the older woman confirms that the plan to please the hero is still on. The patriarch argues that the adventurer already knew their intention and even so sent a direct message. Recalling the MC's order, the family analyzes the warning that any new attempt at a reward would be useless. Shocked by the absolute refusal for a meeting with the city authorities, the leader asks for confirmation of that audacity. Marie guarantees that she tried everything to show the church's sincerity, but the hero ordered that the two of them focus on other obligations. She passes on the young man's advice about investing their time and fortune to protect and strengthen the local population instead of flattering him. Putting the information together, the patriarch deduces that the family seal handed over doesn't have much practical use for the warrior at the moment. Trying to look on the bright side, the man believes that the fake spy is giving the church time to grow and become a worthy ally in the future. He explains to his daughters that this is the real reason not to try to force a direct payment to the hero right now. Reflecting on the warrior's words, Marie realizes how scary it is that his advice manipulated even her parents. The nun remembers how the masked man always finds the perfect argument to test the sincerity of everyone around him. With a tone of pure respect, she states that this was the hidden message behind that man's apparent simplicity. Wrapping up the debate about the young man's intentions, the patriarch praises his daughter's effort to conduct the negotiations in the best possible way. Taking advantage of the opening, Nina eagerly raises her hand to pass on the last message sent by the adventurer. Upon hearing the kind message focused on the family's hard work during the crisis, the leaders are paralyzed. A contemplative silence takes over the entire grand cathedral while the couple processes that unexpected empathy. They realize that the hero coordinated the end of the meeting at the mansion at the exact moment the heretics' attack was neutralized in the city. Impressed with the masked man's strategic mastery, the couple concludes that this man's reliability borders on the absurd. Marie confirms the family's suspicions, stating that picking a fight with this supposed elite imperial military man would be absolute ruin. She is completely sure that such a brilliant intellect must hold one of the most important positions within the ruthless faction. Suddenly changing the course of the conversation, the young nun asks about the leader of the criminals who attacked the temple. Her mother confirms that the information has already been extracted from the captured invaders and that the head of the enemy operation must be trying to flee the city. Surprised by the information, Nina immediately asks if the church troops aren't going to capture the fleeing criminal. The patriarch clarifies that the institution is already taking action, but warns about the risk of the enemy leader attempting a desperate revenge against the faithful or against the masked hero. Because of this imminent danger, the man concludes that blocking absolutely all of the heretics' escape routes wouldn't be the smartest strategy at the moment. Even understanding the cautious tactic, the young nun sighs in frustration as she remembers all the wickedness shown by the villain during the conflict in the city.